Manhattan area, and one of our staff took them out and did some brush removal, tree cutting, and so forth to reduce some fire danger in a residential area where public land presented a threat of fire to the residential area because of being overgrown, and as most public agencies, that agency didn't have the funding to really manage it as it was needed. So we brought in a crew of able-bodied young men and women to come do a lot of the work. Every year that project has grown. It's moved around. Some of it's been at Tuttle Creek. Some of it was at Milford. We did several years over at Toronto Reservoir. And starting last year, we've been working in the Hutchison area on that project. As we moved to Hutchison, we brought on a new partner. A major player in it was the Hutchison Fire Department. In the past, we haven't had the local fire department directly involved, but the situation here worked out very well that they've been a key player with us. So we'll have about 36 HCC fire science students, along with about 60 other individuals between the fire department and other qualified individuals coming in from several states to participate in this project. The primary work we're going to be doing, the two work areas that we worked last year we'll probably be back at, and this is all somewhat weather dependent, so every day we kind of have to see what's coming the next day to plan the exact project. But we'll be doing some work at the Sand Hill State Park north of town, and we're actually in a few minutes going to be meeting with the county commission to brief them because that's in their area of concern. And we'll be doing some work probably at the Prairie Dunes Country Club. There's also some private land in that area in between that is such that it could be threatened by the public land or it could be a threat to the public land, depending on where a fire might start. We may be doing some work on some private land in that area as well. We'll be doing at a minimum some brush removal, putting in some fire prevention or fire control lines, cutting down some hazardous trees, and if weather allows, we'll do some prescribed burning. That is very much weather dependent, so that's the one thing we can't say for sure if we'll be doing until the evening before or the morning of, but we will be doing hopefully some burning at a minimum, maybe burning some piles, hopefully burning some larger areas. So that's kind of what will be going on. You may be hearing or seeing smoke in the area that last week of March, last full week of March. If so, hopefully that's us. If it is us, it's on purpose. And we'll be having people monitor it until it's over with. I think last year there was some concern because after the main part of it was done, people were able to see smoke and flames in the area and had some concern. We won't be abandoning things until it's over with. And so it's been a great partnership between HCC and us and the fire department. And did you want to add anything from the college perspective, or?
We're just really looking forward to it. This will be my first year taking part in it. Oh, okay, thanks. This will be my first year taking part in it, and I know that the students have been really looking forward. We have over 30 students that have enrolled to take this, so we're just excited and glad to be partnering up with you guys once again, and excited to see the town's cooperation and enjoying it too. So
Thank you.
Yep. And I believe Jennifer handed out, I don't know if you actually have them in hand yet or not, but a packet with an invitation to a VIP day that we'll be holding.
Yep.
If you have time, we'd love to have you come out and take a look at it. We understand you may well not have time, but you're certainly invited and would be welcome if you choose to participate. And I think that's got contact information. If you have any questions before or during the event, we'd be happy to answer for you. So, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council on an item that is not on the agenda? If so, please address the podium and state your name and address.
My name is Dan Power. My address is 6903 North Monroe. For this conversation is 328 North Main. I'm one of those that gets taxation without representation. Which I think they did something in Boston Harbor about that. I don't remember. I'm here on behalf of the YMCA. I don't know if this is the correct forum or not, but I'm not all that good at Facebook, so I'm going to do it here. What we did was bring to our attention our membership, which is between 5,500 and 6,000 people, which is 13 or 14% of the population of the city. We have concerns about the parking area that's going away. It's been a consistent problem for the arena when we have the National Basketball Tournament and those kind of things. If the Hutch Wynn's proposition comes to fruition, which we hope it does, then those parking issues are going to be exacerbated if we're going to use the arena for a lot more things. The YMCA is across the street from the parking area there. It's going to be eliminating, the plan is to eliminate 139 spots there. A lot of those have been used by high school students and the YMCA older people and families. While the YMCA doesn't own the property and isn't requesting anything or thinking that we owe anybody anything, we just want to bring it to the attention. There's some issues on this agenda and some others in the future that might come in place with that. I just wanted to bring our concerns out, and we were attacked on Facebook as putting out lies to our membership in a letter that we sent to them. We stand 100% behind what we said. It was accurate and fair and true. To that degree, I just hope that the City Council keeps in mind that we have an issue here, and it's going to be exacerbated if we continue with the plans without additional parking areas. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Dan. And we are definitely keeping that in mind as we look at some of the alternates on the project, especially for this next phase, and seeing what we can do about that parking. And I'm sure that there's a compromise we can arrive at with some funding from the YMCA and the city. I'm not sure what that'll look like, but we'll definitely be in touch as the project moves forward.
Thank you, Mayor.
Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council? Hello, good morning.
I'm Jason McDade, 629 East Avenue F here in Hutchinson, Kansas. President of the River Rats has introduced a proposal to try to keep the ATV park access open. I know we all like to have had the ending conversation today, March 1st, like we said it for, but unfortunately the scheduling of the two government bodies just doesn't allow that. It's the hurry and wait. We've done I think everything that was asked of us by February 1st, this was January 19th, we'd agreed to this, and by February 1st, I'd give Mr. Deerdorf the proposal information and a detailed outline of our vision, and it addressed all the concerns of liability with the insurance agent, the leasing, the parking, the crossing of the road, the noise. We checked off the list and tried and believed at that time our proposal alleviated all of the concerns and more. And I give that to Mr. Deerdorf, and it took, I think, 19 days for South Hutchinson to even sit down to go, okay, well, this is the proposal. And then they had some additional clarifications that was needed that they informed me of that afternoon. And that very next morning, I brought him some clarification information, which he has passed on, and I think we're still waiting on South Hutch to respond to that. And I think it's just a scheduling and them to view the information type of deal to get back with him. And I think he's been in communication with the city attorney to try to draw up a lease, and I'm trying to draw up a lease with private parking, and those things would take some time. I don't know how the council feels at this time, how the no parking signs are, how effective it is in South Hutchinson's view, what they kind of want to do today.
Yeah, you know, Jason, we really appreciate all your work on that, and we have met with the city of South Hutch, the mayor, and city administrator over there, and I think that they're impressed also with your efforts. And I apologize that the pace of government kind of turns at the speed of molasses, but I do think that we're still actively working on a compromise, and we've involved the attorneys. John, did you have anything to add to that?
Well, just, yeah, we're in the process now of drafting a lease that, as the mayor said, we've met with South Hutch. They were, for the most part, pleased with what the proposal looked like, a few details, and it's just a little interesting process to lease out this area to a private group, and so it's not just easily done. And so we're putting together that lease agreement to be looked at by both parties, and although South Hutch would not be a party to the agreement, they certainly need to be consulted as to the restrictions and what have you that will be placed in that lease. And so, I'm not gonna give you a date yet.
Okay,
So,
I was just gonna ask. It's like you're
so
reading my mind.
we are working on that lease agreement, and there's just a lot of legalities involved in when you're doing that particular kind of activity that's going on down there. So we need to be real careful with that. As I know it today, the area is still open, so it's not prohibiting anybody from riding in that area.
Okay. I know you're itching with the weather getting nicer.
And well, and at the same time, we as an organization, if this proposal is accepted and adopted, we'd like to go down immediately and alleviate that, because before we can actually fulfill that proposal, there's physical work for us to be done. There's cars that need to be moved, gates that need to be installed, where the riders, we're gonna call them the bad apples, have torn down the fence on the boundaries and stuff, need to be re-fenced, the boundaries need to be remarked. There's some which we're standing there going, let's go do it.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. But we can't really justify going and doing that if South Hutchinson ends up saying no, or there's a legality hurdle that just can't be crossed. And I'm pretty good at crossing hurdles.
Yeah.
I just am. And so is the city of Hutchinson, and we just haven't had time to sit down and do that.
Well, we assure you we're still moving forward, and we appreciate your patience, and I definitely appreciate your leadership on this, Jason. So
And to touch on that, via, like he was saying, I can't control Facebook. And so from the River Rats and this proposal's perspective, any phone calls or emails or any type of communications that you've received that hasn't been from me does not speak for us. And any additional from today forward doesn't speak for us. We do listen to them and take their wants and wishes into consideration. But as you pointed out at the beginning, for a large part, I don't have time for foul language, name calling, inappropriate behavior of that type. We don't want to be affiliated with that. So know that that is not a representation of us. And the city manager does have my contact information, which I think that you probably do too. And feel free to contact me day or night in any form of media. And if you have any further questions or anything that I can do, but I think it's kind of up to us. And
balls in our court. Yeah.
yeah, so
Thank you, Jason.
Okay, thank you.
We'll be in touch. Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council?
Fooled me.
Going once. Hearing none, please call the next item.
Item 5, consent agenda.
I would move to approve the consent agenda and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Deckent.
Yes.
Inskeep.
Yes.
Dave Line.
Yes.
Soldner.
Yes.
Pyros de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 6A, consider resolution permitting Fairfield Inn consent to mortgage.
Good morning. Frank Edwards, Director of Finance for the city. What we have here today is really a request from Fairfield Inn and their owners, Hutchinson Hotel LLC, to refinance the Fairfield Inn. And the method of how this would work is currently the city of Hutch issued taxable industrial revenue bonds for this project. The city also leased this project to Hutchinson Hotel LLC, so the city is actually the owner of the property. But we have no liabilities for this property. The tenant assumes all liabilities. The tenant's requesting consent from the city to approve a leasehold mortgage. And what that really is they've got an arrangement with Rose Hill Bank to mortgage this property, and they will use those mortgage proceeds to buy back all the industrial revenue bonds. Those bonds will be held as collateral against that mortgage. So it's really a refinancing, which is allowed in the agreement with Hutchinson Hotel LLC. This resolution has been reviewed by Kutak Rock, our legal counsel, and they agree that this is appropriate and acceptable. And the city council must decide whether or not to approve or reject this resolution. And both Kutak Rock and staff recommend approval of this resolution.
So Frank, essentially, we would no longer be the owners of the property, is that correct?
That is not correct. No, we would
No,
still own
we
the
would still own the
property.
property.
And we'll still have no financial liabilities for the property. This is just really
But the
changing from one financing process to another.
Okay, the collateral would no longer be the bond, or the bonds that were issued, am
It'll
I
be the
correct?
mortgage.
It'd be a mortgage, okay.
Further questions? Is there a motion on this item?
I move we approve the resolution permitting Fairfield Inn to engage in this mortgage refinancing.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Deckent?
Yes?
Inskeep?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho?
Yes, next item, please.
Item 6B, consider ordinance amending Chapter 4 of the Hutchinson City Code regarding historic preservation.
Hey, good morning. I'm Casey Jones, Senior Planner. And let's talk about preservation a little bit. The Landmarks Commission for the city has been reviewing our current preservation ordinance for several years. We started having them take a look at it back in 2011. And in terms of just updating it, modernizing it, clarifying some of its provisions, making it easier to understand. And they've held numerous meetings to discuss it section by section. They have gone over several different drafts of it. And one of the reasons it's taken us this long to get to the point we're at is due to all of the staffing changes that we've had in the planning department. We've had several planners come and go, and we had our director leave partway through when we were reviewing the ordinance. So at this point, I think the ordinance that's proposed is in pretty good shape. The Landmarks Commission has reviewed it twice, and they are recommending approval of it. And as noted in your report and in your agenda, the first time they reviewed it was on June 26th of 2014. And they recommended approving the preservation ordinance at that time. And then it took a while to have the city attorney review that draft and bring it back to us with his comments. We incorporated his comments into that draft and sent it back to the Landmarks Commission one last time, most recently on April 23rd, 2015. So the Landmarks Commission is recommending approval, and what this draft is a new Chapter 4 of the City Code. It would replace the existing Chapter 4, which is the Preservation Ordinance. The existing ordinance was adopted in 1991, and it really hasn't been updated since then. I think we have a little slide here that gives you a really brief overview of some of the major talking points of what has changed, and there's a more detailed outline in your packet of some of the major changes. But major changes include updated definitions. There were a lot of terms in the existing ordinance that weren't even used anywhere in the chapter, so those were taken out. Several new terms were added, terms that are commonly used when you're talking about preservation. One important one is the standardization of review criteria. Currently, it's kind of confusing the way our ordinance is set up. When we're reviewing local historic landmarks, there are actually 15 criteria that our Landmarks Commission has to review to decide whether or not to approve a project. That's different from the state and national register properties. They have simply 10 standard conditions that are based on the Secretary of Interior standards. We'd like to remove those 15 conditions and just have all of our landmarks be reviewed by the same 10 standards. And that's proposed in this ordinance. And this ordinance only applies to local register properties, by the way. So our local ordinance that's in our city code only applies to properties that are on the local historic register.
Casey, could you tell us what a local landmark would be that wouldn't be on the state and national register?
Well, we don't have any local historic districts, but we have many local landmarks. A lot of houses, a lot of individual homes, and they're scattered throughout the city. They're not really concentrated in any one particular area. An example I can think of would be the Trinity United Methodist Church would be one that's on the local register and not on the state or national. And there are several homes in the Hyde Park neighborhood on the local register that aren't on the state or national. And then some of the properties that are on the state and national are also on the local register. And that becomes really interesting when you get a case with somebody wanting to build an addition or something onto one of those homes, and it's on all three registers, and there's two sets of standards, and our Landmarks Commission actually has to make two separate motions. One confirming that it complies with the state and national, and then one confirming it complies with the local historic ordinance. So
And this would then bring us in line with those other two organizations.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's been confusing for staff, it's been confusing to the Landmarks Commission, and then for the homeowner coming before our commission, just to grasp why we're having to do all these different motions and different standards.
So this streamlines the process for our residents wanting to make changes to their historic properties.
It does, and it makes the process more transparent and easier to understand, I think.
Gotcha.
And easier to process an application. Saves staff time in writing the reports as well. We like that. One thing else we've added is a design review committee. And in fact, our Landmarks Commission held its very first design review committee meeting just last week. That is a subcommittee of the Landmarks Commission. And we decided to establish this committee to help sit down with the property owners before they come to the Landmarks Commission for their official meeting to review their project, and it helps, vet out some of the issues or concerns that the Landmarks Commission might have with their project, and they have a chance to either redesign their project or make revisions before coming to that official meeting. It's a little bit easier to talk and go over their project in a less formal setting with the design review committee. And that's a common practice in a lot of other communities. And we thought we'd try it out and see how that works for us here in Hutchinson. But the ordinance we're proposing would formalize that and establish that design review committee. Also, in other cities in Kansas that have preservation ordinances, almost all of them issue an official certificate of appropriateness once a project has been approved, whether that's approved by the city staff or the Landmarks Commission or council. And we have not done that in the past. We haven't had a formal certificate of appropriateness, so that's something that will be written into this ordinance. Also, one of the differences on appeals, and the city council has heard several appeals over the last few years. According to state law, the properties that are on the state or national register require a public hearing when they come before the city council. But we didn't have that written into our local ordinance. It was unclear whether or not a local register property had to have a public hearing coming on appeals to the council. So for consistency, the Landmarks Commission proposed requiring a hearing. So we'd publish a public hearing notice and do the legal notice, on an appeal to the council over a local landmark. I don't think we've had any appeals in my time working here on a local one, but it just simplifies the process, makes it easier to understand. We have included factors for the city council to consider when an appeal comes before you. And you actually did use those factors, I think, at the last couple of appeals you've had. But they're based in state statute, and there again, we're trying just for consistency purposes to use the same set of standards for the local properties that we do for the state and national. So in your packet, there's a little description here of what those factors include. Basically, that the city council would consider feasible and prudent alternatives. They would consider technical issues, design issues, the project's relationship to the comprehensive plan, economic issues, and planning issues or alternatives when considering appeals. And then the other major change that we had was the current ordinance has a very lengthy section about preservation associations. And since there aren't any known active preservation associations that we know of, we decided that, and the Landmarks Commission decided that that probably should come out of the ordinance. That we have a good working relationship with the Houston Whiteside Homeowners Association. And if certainly there's a preservation association out in the community that wants to get involved in our preservation activities, the city will be more than willing to partner with them. So do you have any questions for me at this point? That was a really brief overview of the proposed changes.
Casey, speak a minute to some of the language reference to enforcement and violations and how that would be conducted. Is it any different than what we currently do, or how would that process work in terms of enforcement or violations?
Well, I don't think that we've recommended changing anything related to that. And
All right.
I mean, that section is in our current ordinance and would still remain in the ordinance. I mean, it's treated similarly to a zoning code compliance related issue. So
There's some reference to it would be placed as a special assessment against the property if the violation were upheld. Is that right? What
I don't.
what I
I'm
thought I
not
read.
familiar with that,
Okay.
John. I don't know.
Okay.
I do know that a copy of the entire draft ordinance is in your agenda packet, which I don't have before me, but
There is a notation in there on the,
Right.
assessing the
Assessing.
abatement cost to the property, to the parcel.
Is that new, or is that
I think
previously been in place?
I think that's been
Has
in
it?
place.
Okay. That's all I
We just haven't got to that level yet.
well, that's something that only I think the courts would be able to impose.
Casey, really appreciate all of the work on this, especially on behalf of the Landmarks Commission. I know it's been a labor of love for several years. I just have a few questions. And you do not have the ordinance in front of you? If not, I can read
I
it
have
off.
the
It's just-
summary of the changes before me.
In section 4-306, maintenance of landmarks and properties in historic districts, if you go down to A, in order to preserve, protect, and enhance landmarks in historic districts, such properties should receive reasonable care, maintenance, and upkeep. In general, the city encourages, and by other references, may require owners, tenants, or lessees to correct deterioration, decay, damage, structural defects, and nuisances. And then it lists all of those. Those two words, may require, would those extend outside anything already required by International Property Maintenance Code?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know that there's any authority that this ordinance would give the city to, other than what's already written into the property maintenance code or, the building codes of the city, to address, deterioration of a structure and those types of things. We can certainly encourage repair, we can encourage maintenance through the preservation ordinance, but
Okay.
it's nothing that can be required
I would
or
imagine,
imposed.
this dates back to when was the first landmark ordinance? When was this initiated again?
This was 1991.
So it proceeds by a number of years, our adopting the IPMC.
Yeah.
And so my guess is there are elements that we're seeking to address some issues that weren't yet addressed as they are now.
I think that's a really good point, Steve. That's probably why that was in there. It looked like it covered a lot of the same areas that the IPMC would. Could you talk a little bit about the certificate of economic hardship? And is that something that's always existed? It's not some, I'm glad it's something we have, but it's not something I knew we had.
Yeah, that's something new,
Great.
along with the certificate of appropriateness. There's an opportunity for, a property owner to appeal. And, if the city council were to determine that a homeowner or property owner faced an economic hardship, and that would be grounds for granting an appeal, then you would have the ability to grant that certificate of economic hardship. And it's an official document that we would give to the owner, and they'd have the ability to proceed with the project at that point.
And would a fee be assessed for that appeal?
Well, that's another item coming up on the agenda today. We have a master fee schedule in which we're proposing some changes, and I think we're proposing to add an application fee for appeals of the Landmarks Commission's decisions.
Could you tell me what page that certificate of economic hardship
It was
28.
on, yeah, 28, yeah.
Because I believe the commission is it's the commission.
The Landmarks Commission.
Yeah, so this would not be for an appeal. An appeal would only come to you if the Landmarks Commission said, you don't meet the
Okay.
economic hardship requirements. And then, Casey's correct, then we would charge them a fee for the appeal.
Okay. Thank you.
And again, is this only on locals, or would this apply to the state and national?
Only on local.
Only on local.
Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
So you really don't have a huge base. I mean,
Some of those homeowners, I don't think are on the state,
yeah, yeah. I
so
mean,
that might help some of those who aren't able to pay.
You had more questions?
No,
I think.
please.
Well, I was
Please
just
go
gonna,
on. I've got several.
are most of the state and national property, historic designated properties, are they also local, or by and large are they not?
By and large, they're not local. Most of the locally listed properties are only on the local register and not on any other.
John, maybe you touched on this, and maybe I'm getting way too much in the weeds here. I'd never read the whole ordinance, but under section 4705 enforcement, the city may institute an appropriate action or proceeding to prevent or abate such unlawful action. What would an appropriate action be? Or have we not determined that yet? Fines or, I mean, some of that language is really pretty
I didn't
aggressive.
see any reference to fines.
Yeah, I didn't either.
Yeah.
That's why I'm not sure.
Are there fines? Or is it just violation and those violation fees are then
You know, we modeled this ordinance after Wichita's and
Okay.
I believe Lawrence's. They had some of the same language.
Yeah.
It's really not our intent to ever have to use
Okay.
this.
good?
But
Good.
I suppose there could be a case where maybe we would have something on the local register that you guys would want to say, you know, this property owner can afford this. But I'm not thinking that this is something that we would ever really use, because we do have the IPMC. And from staff's part, if that's a section you guys have struggles with, we'd be fine probably with you just striking that out. If you feel like it's not an intent on our part or the
I see.
commission's part to go chasing after local properties on the local register. The other thing is, properties on the local register can easily remove themselves. They don't have to go through.
They don't have to go through a
I think they would
process.
petition you all, and you probably would just let them remove themselves.
Oh, I see.
Which, for the state and national register, that is not the case.
That is not the case, right? Yeah.
So,
Thank
but-
you for clarifying that,
Sure.
Janet. That
helps.
helps a lot.
And that section's not part of what was reviewed and is being amended with the proposal from the Landmarks Commission, correct? That's an existing
Mhm.
section.
I think that's correct. I don't recall.
Enforcement section, yes.
Mhm.
I don't think we've made any changes to that section at all.
Yeah.
Section 4306, the Preservation Fund, is that also something that was on the existing?
4-306.
I'm getting you all over the place, I apologize.
306?
Yeah,
305.
305.
305? Oh, excuse me. I wrote that
Yes,
wrong.
that is in the
305.
existing ordinance as well.
Okay.
Further questions or comments from the council?
I guess my only question would be to have some reassurance that we're not adding additional layers of regulations that would cause a potential Houston Whiteside resident to not be able to do the appropriate restoration through the appeal process, all of that, that we have imposed so many additional regulations that we're not allowing for that rehabilitation, particularly in the Houston Whiteside district.
Well, you know, this ordinance really would not apply to those properties. This only applies to the local registry.
It would not apply to those properties.
That's correct.
Okay.
There may be a few individual ones in that area that are on the local register, but the majority are
Okay.
not.
Good.
They're on the state.
They're on the state and
state and
national
national,
registers.
Yeah.
And this ordinance is actually much simpler than our current ordinance. Our intent is to simplify, not make it more complicated for people, so I can assure you, if there's something in here that's not simpler, we will fix it, because our current ordinance is just extremely difficult to interpret. It never clearly states that it only applies to local properties, and so when new planners come in and we tell them, okay, you're the preservation planner, they get completely confused. And so this should help us, and like Casey said, the certificate of appropriateness and the economic hardship ability will really help us to be able to work with people, as well as that design review is a great feature for us to have.
Yeah. Thanks for your efforts on that.
I did want to ask about the design review. Is that essentially the came from some of the hearings we had and the proposal to have I don't know that you were calling it a design review at that time, but a group to get together with owners that were wanting to make changes, and so it came out of that conversation earlier on, and you've formally incorporated it into the local landmark ordinance then.
That's right. Yeah, it's proposed to go in section 4-403 B2, and the language that's proposed says that the design review committee may be comprised of present and former members of the Landmarks Commission, as well as other members of the public with a specific area of expertise related to historic preservation. So the Landmarks Commission, so far they've designated or nominated 2 or 3 of their own to serve on this subcommittee, this design review committee. But that's exactly where it derived from, those earlier discussions that we had. You know,
our joint meeting.
with the joint study session that they had with the city council, and trying to, you know, meet earlier on in the process with these property owners to go over their project, to try to get them in a position where their project would be approvable, so that it wouldn't be denied in the first place and wouldn't have to come to the council for an appeal. That was the main reason behind doing it. So
I'm wondering, there have been concerns about enforcement sections of the local landmark ordinance. What I suggest is if we have concerns, maybe we I suggest maybe we approve what's been presented, but ask that the Landmarks Commission take a look at those sections if there's a concern on our part about
Well,
those areas.
I think the concern arises because we've just never read it from start to finish before. And so we weren't aware of the fact that this is actually a very pared down, simplified version of what we have. So I'm fine with
Okay.
how it currently stands, and appreciate your efforts to make it easier for those homeowners. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to comment on this item? Further discussion from the council or a motion on this item?
I move that we approve and adopt the ordinance amending Chapter 4 of the Historic Preservation Code of the City as presented to us by staff, to include repealing the existing Chapter 4.
I'll second that.
Please call the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Tyros de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 6C, consider resolution adopting a master fee schedule.
Good morning, Mayor and City Council. Jan McCarron, Director of Planning and Development. I apologize, I didn't introduce myself when I was stepping up on the last item. But, the item before you is consideration of a master fee schedule for the Planning and Development Department. We've amended or adopted completely new ordinances in the past couple of years. The most recent today, Historic Preservation Ordinance. I think it was last October, we did the subdivision regulations, and then the zoning regulations were amended, completely overhauled in 2011. And all three of those sets of regulations refer to a master fee schedule. The benefit of doing that is that we can just change the fee schedule and not have to completely come through and change these. The fee schedule can be changed by resolution rather than have to do new ordinances every time a fee changes. So we actually don't have a fee schedule, a master fee schedule, so this item before you is intending to create one for our department. The fees, I should note for you, are not intended to cover all the cost of a project, but they do help to defer costs for publication, for legal ads, postage and mailing property owner notices and packets, although we have started doing electronic packets where we can. Photocopying costs, and then just some of the review and analysis time that's required by staff. And so the city attorney has graciously gone through all the existing resolutions, and there were several of them that established fees. And what we're proposing would just repeal all of those and establish one section where the fees would be located. We are not proposing to raise any fees, but we are proposing a few new fees. The historic preservation fees you see there would be new. And what we're proposing would be if there is an appeal that comes of the Landmarks Commission decision that comes to this body, that we would charge a fee of $165. That's because those are all public hearings. We do have to put an ad in the paper. Landmarks Commission review would be a small fee of $20 just to defer the cost of handling and processing those projects. If someone were to want to do a local register nomination, that would be a small fee of $25. We haven't had one, but we may be getting some interest. If someone wanted to remove a property from the local register, I mentioned that in the last item, that would be a small fee of $25, again, just to help defer the cost of processing. And then for a state and national register nomination, we're proposing a $50 fee for those. Other fees that would be new would be a service charge for removing temporary signs. Not to remove them, but for someone to come and pick them up from the right-of-way. We have, you've probably seen, there's not a whole lot of signs in the right-of-way. I want to commend my staff, even though we're short-staffed, they've been diligently pursuing those signs. But our current ordinance allows us to charge a fee, we just never have. A lot of times, and if the people don't come get them in 10 days, we just throw the signs away. Other new fees would be site plan. We've done, I think, 38 site plans since we started with these new regulations, or since we started tracking them in 2013. We don't charge a fee at all, and it does require quite a bit of staff time to review. We send them out to other departments as well as to other agencies. So we're proposing a small fee of $50 for those. And then finally, for final plats, we've not charged fees for the final plat, only for the preliminary plat. So this proposes a small fee for final plats and subdivision variances. And I guess the final thing actually would be zoning certificates. We do get quite a few phone calls from mostly when people are refinancing, wanting us to provide them with a letter saying that the zoning is appropriate and there's no violations on the property. That does take up staff time. So we're recommending a small nominal fee of $10 for those. We have done a fee comparison. I did not include that because it's a couple of years out of date, but we haven't raised our fees, I don't think, for 10 years or more. And at the time that we did the comparison, which is the year I first started here in 2013, we were below average on every single fee that we had. So I feel very confident that the fees we're proposing, the new ones, would also be low. And like I said, we're not proposing to raise any of our existing fees. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
I would just say it makes a lot of sense to have a separate fee schedule like you, for the reasons you illustrated. Then you don't have to go back and amend every single ordinance. Again, just good thinking on your part. Absolutely.
Further comments or questions? Is there a motion on this item?
It's very quiet. I'll go ahead. I would move to accept and approve the resolution establishing and amending fees as authorized by Chapter 4, Chapter 9, and Chapter 27 of the Code of the City of Hutchinson relating to historical preservation, subdivision regulations, zoning regulations, and authorize the mayor to sign.
And I will second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Deckent?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Dave
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 6D, consider ordinance amending rental registration and inspection program.
Good morning again. This is, you'll remember at our last meeting, you considered some amendments from the Investment Resources Corporation to our rental registration and inspection program. At that meeting, the council voted to deny those amendments, but did instruct staff to work on preparing some amendments to allow for a 6-year deferral on inspections for new construction. So what you have before you today is just that, a deferral for properties where a certificate of occupancy is issued, and that would be a 6-year deferral from the inspections. So let's just say a property was built this year and got their certificate of occupancy. Their first inspection, if I could do the math, would be 2022. But they would still be required to register annually with our rental registration program and still pay that fee. They just would not have to go through an inspection until 2022. And the reasoning for that is because presumably there would be nothing really that would need to be inspected as it would be a brand new unit. So that's what we have before you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Questions, comments, or motion?
Well, I would move to accept and approve the ordinance amending section 21-1105, residential rental registration inspection of chapter 21 of the Code of the City of Hutchinson, and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Please
A lot
call
of
the
alliteration.
Yeah.
please call the roll.
Deckent?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Dave
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 7A, consider 2016 residential rehabilitation grant.
Madam Mayor, I'll be abstaining from discussion and voting on this particular item.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, good morning again. As you guys will recall, when City Council was working on the 2016 budget, City Council allocated $70,000 as a set aside for housing initiatives. And late in November 2015, we received a request from Interfaith Housing Services to partner with them on what they were hoping to do was a revolving loan, rehabilitation loan. There was a grant they were going to apply for through the state, and they wanted the city to partner with them on that. As it turns out, that grant, we were not eligible to apply for the grant because we already have an open moderate income housing grant. That would be the townhomes at Santa Fe Place. So we continue discussions with Interfaith for how their proposal could possibly be amended to reflect a partnership of some sort for the purpose of housing rehabilitation. And this is an example of a house that Interfaith recently rehabbed. This was last year. You can see that the house actually had a fire. I don't think it destroyed too much of the outside, but on the inside, it really had quite a bit of damage. And I just love this picture because it gives you a really good idea of what it was before and what they were able to do. to that house with a modest amount of money because they use primarily volunteer labor. I got the chance to tour this, by the way, and I don't know if you guys did or not, but they just did an incredible job on this house, very charming house. The Housing Commission considered the proposal and they were favorable. They felt like anything that we can do to try to spur rehabilitation in our community would be favorable or would be a positive thing. They did want to have some terms on any kind of loan or grant that would include doing a minimum number of houses over the course of the next few years and also having reporting. And we're trying to keep these things simple because that's what we've been hearing from other agencies as well as from the CHODOs, the housing development organizations, is that, you know, all the strings that are required, and we personally have experienced those strings with the CDBG grant, all the reporting and strings that are required just really slow down a project and don't really, it's questionable how much value is really added by superfluous amount of reporting. We came up with a draft agreement, sent it to the attorney's office, and talked with the city manager. And really, after looking at it, it was determined it really is a grant. It's not a loan. We wouldn't expect them to pay it back. We think that's pretty, that they'll be able to meet the terms. And Housing Commission agreed that, yeah, it's a grant. So the terms of the grant would be a 3-year period during which 4 homes must be rehabilitated. Interface proposing that they would use those funds on a house, sell the house, then reuse the funds. And so that's how they're able to go through more than one house. And as a representative from Interfaith would present quarterly reports to the Housing Commission and must include the project's scope of work and a detailed expenditure report. So there's some accountability on the part of Interfaith. The funding would be used to purchase materials, supplies, or labor, but not for purchasing property. And that's pretty typical for grants. A sponsorship sign would be placed on the property, basically saying funded, you know, we'll have to come up with the language, but funded by City of Hutchinson Rehabilitation Grant. And then homes would be located in a target area. And what the Housing Commission recommended would be basically south of 11th. Which is our rehabilitation plan area. I know that a representative from Interfaith is here today. He can hopefully answer any questions that I'm not able to. But this would meet some of our 2009 housing needs assessment goals, particularly along the lines of trying to reuse and recycle rehabilitation funds. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
This is the exact type of partnership and creative solutions I think our community needs to start making a dent in our housing problems. And I really commend Interfaith Housing. Ron, did you want to say a few words about the projects, or you don't have to, but.
Yeah, so I hope that our reputation precedes us. We're in, we're committed. The 7th Street house that you see there, that was a little shy of $50,000 in cash to get that done with volunteer labor. It takes real dollars and investment to get it done, but it's a beautiful little house that sits there now with a young man who went through our cash program that's now living in it. If you've been by 11th Street and Adams in the last couple of months, there's more. This investment by you to us would be quite an affirmation, but we are continuing to try to bring health back to our revitalization area. And if I can help you with any specifics regarding what we would do or how that works, I'm here.
I'm glad you mentioned also that the person who had purchased the home in question, because I had a conversation with him at one point, that he was able to utilize other programs that you have in place to help also not only fix the home, but then to populate it, to get a nice young man in there, you know. So.
Right, so full disclosure, that's when the world is beautiful.
Right.
That's when everything lines up nicely. We don't always have a client that does that, but the good news on that is it goes to the market and it's made available to a new homeowner. That's one possibility, and so someone's able to buy it and still you're getting things back on the tax rolls. In some cases, there are rental units that we're seeking to fix up. We're still bringing beauty back to the revitalization area, and we're still bringing people who are part of our program and we're overseeing that to help them be a positive part of the city.
Well, I certainly think the small investment the city could make in this type of program would go much further with an organization like Interfaith Housing overseeing it than it would with just us, because we don't have those relationships with volunteer labor. We don't have the same mission that you have.
Yeah, thanks for the encouragement. We're loving the collaboration, very appreciative of the planning department and our growing relationship with the city. You bet.
Are there specific questions about?
Mayor, I wonder if we could just take a minute, and for particularly the benefit of the general public, to briefly explain how this came about. This line item was $70,000. I believe it was an initial line item, $70,000, which was, for the first time, I believe, was budgeted in that designation to do exactly what we're talking about here. So, again, another indication of the commitment that the city is making toward housing and restoring our housing stock. So thanks to your leadership, Steve, for presenting that to us last budget cycle, and certainly we're looking forward to more of those kinds of projects.
Thank you.
Any further comments or questions? Is there a motion on this item?
Well, I will move to accept and approve the recommendation of the Housing Commission to approve a 2016 residential rehabilitation grant in the amount of $50,000 to Interfaith Housing Services as presented by staff.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Inskeep,
Yes.
Dave Line,
Yes.
Soldner,
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho.
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 7B, consider final plat for Sandy Lake Edition.
Casey Jones, Senior Planner, one more time. This item is a subdivision proposal. And it's a property located on 11th Avenue with the big lake on it, just east of Halsted Street here inside the city limits. The property is owned by Susan and Clarence Nolte. And they've owned it since sometime back in the 1980s, and this for them is the first step in developing the property, getting the property subdivided, platted as a recorded subdivision. So as you can see, it's about 61 acres in size. It's currently zoned industrial, I3. And I think we have a few photographs here on our PowerPoint that the applicant provided for us. And they own all of the property on the east side of the lake and along the west side of the lake. And those are the two sides that would be developable. There's really not but a sliver of land there along the south and the north sides of it that really can't be built upon. So it's quite a scenic area. A lot of trees. And this is the western portion of the lot, the existing driveway that goes back into the property. And this is the location they'd be using to access the property in the future from about this location. And back to the zoning map one more time. I think we have a picture here of the final plat. It's a fairly simple plat. Dan Garber prepared it, and he's here in the audience today, as are the applicants. The owners of the property are here if you have any questions of them. We've got 3 cases here before you on this property. So the first one is just to review the subdivision. Not controversial whatsoever. The Planning Commission recommended approving the preliminary plat with a number of conditions and revisions. And those revisions have been made and they've all been addressed. The Planning Commission then recommended approval of the final plat to the City Council. So that's what this is showing you here. May have a little bit zoomed in version of that picture for you. As you can see, it consists of 2 lots. There's lot 1 on the west side, lot 2 on the east side of the property, and then in the middle is a reserve area which encompasses that lake that the property owner would be responsible for maintaining, taking care of. The owner does have plans at this point to develop lot 1, which is the western lot. They are interested in building a home out there, as well as expanding their existing business. They own Mid-Kansas Marine, which is located on here 4th Street, just east of Plum. And they would like to put a new office and showroom and kind of shop out there to repair boats and that type of thing. And they use the lake to take their customers out for test drives on these boats and watercraft. So that's the reason for this request. Any questions for staff?
Just a curiosity, why the jog on the north boundary line?
Well, what I understand in talking to Mr. Garber is that we have a flood control ditch along the north side of that property. And maybe we can go back to the aerial map so you can see the aerial. A portion of that embankment actually disintegrated and it fell into the lake at one point. And so I understand that it's actually been acquired and it's publicly owned city property now.
So we own a portion of a lake?
We own a portion of a lake, and that water that goes through that flood control channel actually commingles with the water in the lake.
Okay.
And before it drains back out and on down and around.
Oh, my.
Okay. Casey, what's the, do you know, the acreage on that, let's see, I guess lot 1 just what's the acreage of the 2 different lots, even though they're very oddly shaped?
15 is what I'm hearing.
On lot 1?
I have the font so small on my overhead. But yes, it is about 15 acres in size. The square footage is 465,515 square feet for lot 1. And then lot 2 is 227,900 square feet.
So that'd be about 7 acres then, I take it. It's about half the size of the other one.
Is Mr. Nolte here? Where, is Mr. Nolte here? Would you mind coming up and maybe just giving a little bit of the background of the history of this project and what your plans are to so we can know you a little better?
My name's Clarence Nolte and my wife Susan is here, and we own Mid-Kansas Marine here in town. We started that business back in 1982, and I bought this property here from Dick Curry, probably about in '85. And Dick owned it for a good number of years. Several different people have owned this piece of property. It's an old sand pit, and nobody's ever really been able to do anything with it, really. And what we've done with it for the last 20-some years is basically we just go over there and test drive our boats, either boats that we've worked on or take customers out to demonstrate boats and stuff. And that's really about all that's ever been able to do with it. And our existing property on 4th Street, we're totally out of room there. And luckily with the way things have went, we're at a point where we need to expand the business. We have another option that we don't really want to do. We also own a store over in Andover, Kansas. It's got enough square footage over there and stuff, but Susan and I are both lifetime residents of Hutchinson, and we would like to do something with that piece of property out there. The unfortunate part of it, I know several of the business and landowners around that area out there, And it has been an area that when left unattended, theft has been a major problem out in that area, in any of that area out in there. And also there's been a problem is just the erosion, and the property has really just gone wild and grown up and stuff. Now, what we would actually like to do is along 11th Street, we'd like to install that old dirt driveway that you saw. We'd like to install a decorative fence there with some nice electrical openers and stuff. Not only for security, but to look a lot nicer when we take customers and stuff over there. The expansion that we'd like to do for the business, I haven't made a definite plan on how big the building would be yet, but it'd probably have to be somewhere around 70 by 100, something like that. And we would use it for a couple different things. Storage inside storage is a big problem for us now. And when we have new boats come in and outboard motors, and we have to assemble all this things and get them ready to go, requires a lot of room, and the Hutchinson location is just out. It's just, there's no way that I can hire more people because there's no place for them to stand and work down there. So we'd like to have at least 2, maybe 4 more employees that we could have there. But in that facilities, we would be talking about putting some very expensive merchandise, not just tools and stuff, but some very expensive merchandise. And there's just no way that I can see to do that, and even with electronic surveillance systems and stuff, because several of the owners that own businesses over there along 14th Street and things, and along 11th Street that I know quite well, surveillance systems hasn't stopped them hardly at all. And anyway, I just cannot see making that type of an investment out there. And it's one reason that we never tried to do anything out there years ago. We all tried to keep everything real tight in-house where we could control it. But if we were able to build, we wanted it to kind of look scenic, like a lodge out there and stuff. And you could call us the caretakers or the night watchmen and stuff, but Susan and I would probably just live right there. As far as the commercial part of it, the only thing that we would probably do there or planning to do there isn't so much of a showroom area or anything. We'd like to have one small office area there that after we take customers out and do a demonstration drive and stuff, where we could go back in kind of a private setting instead of going back to the boat store where the phones are all ringing and people are asking questions and stuff, and talk to them about the boats and what they'd like to change. Anyway, just kind of a atmosphere like that. So that's kind of what we'd like to do.
Thank you for
Yeah,
that.
sounds great.
Good for you. Yeah.
So you,
And it would be
I'm
over
sorry.
on the west end.
You'd retain the current operation you have on 4th Street, I take it?
The current operation has what?
On 4th Street, that would continue to
Yes. yes.
Be maintained?
Yeah, we've got no plans to move it or get rid of it. That would require an awful lot of money to build that much square footage in new space. So we would just want the additional space.
Mhm.
If you've been by our place over there on 4th Street, you'll see now that not only do we have many of our new boats sitting outside, which that's real difficult, trying to keep them clean enough to show to people and things, but we actually have a home outside the city out in the county, and we have a lot of our boats and stuff stored out there. So anyway, we're trying to get a place where we could kind of have a central location where we can keep everything. And we need the extra room, not only just for the storage, we need room for at least 3 or 4 more people to be able to have a place to stand and work and secure their tools and things. And it'd be real handy to do it there. Over in Andover, we do not have a lake in Andover. Where we test run our boats and stuff there, actually the lake that we use belongs to the city of Augusta, so there's nothing that we're going to do over there that's got water.
Okay.
That's kind of what we'd like to do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any
Any-
questions?
Any questions or comments?
What would your time schedule, if this were to be approved? What would your time schedule
Well,
be?
we've been working on this now for a couple years.
Yeah.
And we've been thinking about it for the last 10 or 15 years. But we've talked to the city a time or two before, and we knew that we had to go through quite a process to get this accomplished. And Dan has helped us a great deal, and the City Planning Commission and people have helped quite a little bit to get us to this point here. But anyway, as far as the time frame, we'd like to move along really about as quickly as we can.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there a motion on this item?
Well, I would make a motion to approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve the final plat of the Sandy Lake addition with conditions as presented.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Deckent?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Dave Light?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho?
Yes. Next item, please.
Item 7C, consider rezoning request for tract on East 11th between Halsted and Alcoa Drive.
All right, this is the same exact property that you just reviewed. So the owners are asking to have it rezoned. It's currently zoned I3, which is heavy industrial, and they are asking to change that to C3, the outdoor commercial district. And the reason for that is to allow for construction of the single-family home. In the I3 district, residential uses are not permitted, although they would be allowed to have their business out there in the I3 district. They couldn't have the home. So the way to provide for the home is to first rezone it, and even then it still requires a conditional use permit, which is the next item on your agenda.
Yes.
Again, just a map of the property. As you can see, it's zoned I3, and it's surrounded on all four sides by I3 industrial zoning. I believe we have a picture of the future land use map here. It's difficult to see or make out on the map, but at the bottom left-hand corner, there near 11th and Halsted, we have two properties that are indicated as public or institutional. That's actually a fire station and a water tower. For the most part, the area has an industrial character to it. There's a lot of contractors' offices. There's a lot of storage buildings out there, some manufacturing businesses. There's a grain elevator not too far off, and a couple of industrial parks off to the east and north of it. So I guess that's all the slides I had for that one. But staff was not recommending approval of it because of the nature of the area being industrial. The Planning Commission, though, made a split vote, and they voted 6-3 in favor of approving the zoning change. And you can see in their report their reasoning for that. They considered the fact that this would improve development in the area, the appearance of the area, that I think it would just be an overall improvement for this property, considering how long it's been sitting vacant, and the fact that we have an owner that's willing to invest.
Could you speak to the impact on the surrounding businesses? I thought I read something in there about proper screening that might have to come into play.
That was one concern that staff had is related to our landscaping requirements. When you have an industrial or commercial business and it's next to a property that has a residence on it, that industrial or commercial business is required to provide a 6-foot solid fence with landscaping, or a row of evergreen trees, a landscaped buffer to try to minimize the impact that commercial or industrial business has on the residents. That's only required if that commercial or industrial business were to expand, by I think 20% or more according to our code, or a new development were to go in, a new commercial or industrial development were to go in, and it's on the adjacent property. it would be on a burden imposed upon that business to put that in. So we were considering, the future potential impact on those properties that are right to the west of where we're talking about. The properties that are on the east side of Halsted Street.
But none of the property owners objected in any way, shape, or form to any of this, correct?
That's correct, Nancy. Yeah, we
Okay.
had I don't think we had any comments received, no written comments received, and no one appearing at the public hearing.
Okay.
I always put a great deal of stock in
Yeah.
that as well.
Yeah. So,
Well, and I've driven by the area, and it certainly would be an improvement.
absolutely.
It is kind of scenic, although overgrown, and those shapes of land around the lake probably don't lend themselves well to any industrial use. Casey, in a follow-up question, I'm not sure that we want to, but it seems to me I read somewhere that the property owner, maybe he wants to affirm that or not, would be willing to waive any kind of a screening. Is that even something that we can do necessarily?
And that was discussed at our planning commission meeting, and it's not really something staff has the authority to waive. It would have to be done maybe as a variance,
As a
perhaps,
variance.
or that commercial property owner would apply for the variance.
But it would be the future development of some usage, that owner would come, they'd have the requirement upon them, and they'd come to council or come to planning commission to seek the variance.
That's correct.
That would come with site plan?
Well, it could.
Yeah,
It could come with
Or
site
site
plan.
Or site plan,
Okay.
okay. Well, I sure hope we can make this happen. I don't know, all of us have driven by 11th Street and looked at that thing and wondered what it was about and to repurpose it. And thanks to you guys, the Noltes, for looking at this as an opportunity, and hopefully we can help you expand your business. So appreciate your interest in this. Look forward to it. Let's hope it gets done.
I agree, John. I understand the hesitancy on on behalf of some of the commission members, simply because it doesn't adhere to the
Yeah,
zoning, but
understand
it's such a unique situation that I think this can only help that area. So, are there further comments or a motion on this item?
Well, I guess I would move to approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve the request to rezone a 61.042 acre tract on East 11th Street, the proposed Sandy Lake addition from I-3 heavy industrial to C3 outdoor commercial, based on due consideration of the factors below. Adopt an ordinance for publication, authorize the mayor to sign.
Second.
Please call the roll.
Deckent?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho?
Yes, next item, please.
Item 7D, consider conditional use permit to establish a single-family dwelling.
All right, I have some pictures here on the screen, a site plan of what the owners are hoping to do with their property. This is a view of the entire property, and I'll zoom in a little bit for you here. Really, the area that they're wanting to develop again is on the west side of the lake. It would be lot 1 of this subdivision. Here you can see the north end of the development would be the storage and shop building and corporate office. And it would be provided with an asphalt driveway all the way back to it from 11th Avenue. That's of course required by city zoning ordinance. And then it would have adequate parking, a minimum of, I think, 3 or 4 spaces were required, and 4 spaces are shown there. One of those would be an accessible space per code. And then nearer to 11th, kind of between that commercial building and 11th, we have the proposed single-family dwelling. As you can see there on the plan. And we have some drawings or elevation renderings of that, what the applicant is thinking about doing. It's kind of a lodge style building. There is the front and rear elevation. We also have the side elevations And then I think we have a floor plan here of the main floor showing 1881 square feet. And then there's also a second level loft area proposed. And maybe all of the slides that I had for you. Again, since staff didn't recommend approving the zoning change, we weren't supportive of having a residential use in this area either. The planning commission had a bit of a difficult time with this one too. They recommended approving it by a vote of 8-1. Two of the planning commissioners who had voted against the rezoning just said, well, if we've already recommended approval, we might as well just approve the house too. So that's where we are. The planning commission recommended approval of the conditional use permit for the house, and they recommended imposing the condition that it be a stick-built home. So not a modular home or a home that's moved onto the property, but a built on site.
Okay, and not an industrial building that's been converted.
Right.
So, okay.
And the Noltes, I assume, are agreeable, obviously, because of the plans and that they have in place, yeah. Very fine.
Okay.
Okay, is there a motion on this item?
Well, considering the first two items went through, it'd be a darn shame to stop this one.
Not let it build a house.
Right. I would move that we accept and approve the recommendation of the Planning Commission to approve the conditional use permit for a single-family dwelling at East 11th Avenue, Lot 1 of the proposed Sandy Lake addition pursuant to the factors and conditions listed.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Deckent?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Pyrus de Carvalho?
Yes,
How about a
thank you.
10-minute break, Mayor?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. 10-minute break.
John, if you'd given her just about 2 more seconds, she'd
contest? Okay, I think we'll go ahead and move on to our next item.
Item 7E, consider recommendation on sports arena public art.
Good morning. I'm Justin Combs, Director of Parks and Facilities, and I am filling in for Merrill Dye this morning. Merrill is out sick, so she called me this morning and asked if I could make this presentation for her. So bear with me if I don't have all the facts, but I will do my best. So also, we do have several members of the Art Design Council in the audience, as well as the chairperson, Teresa Preston, who I think she's got some comments when I'm concluded with the presentation. So we'll go ahead and get started. First, we want to kind of talk about the process, the selection process. On August 5th, we did an open call for artists, that was U.S. Residents only. It was on a website called, I believe it's called Cafe. It's a well-known website. The deadline for entries was September 4th. From that call for artists, we had 168 entries. And then the Design Council then had 5 rounds of selections. We went through all 168 entries, gave them a yes, no, maybe. We did that 5 times until we got to 3 finalists. And then on December 14th, we had interviews. There were phone interviews with the 3 finalists. We also asked them to come up with kind of a conceptual plan, not a full-blown plan yet, but just tell us, kind of elaborate on their ideas, what they would do for the arena. On February 5th, then, we invited all 3 artists to make a presentation on their proposals to a joint committee of the Sports Arena Building Committee, as well as some members of the Art Design Council. So that was on the 5th. A few days later through that meeting, we recommended Corin Rolstad as the artist of the 3. And we're going to look at all 3 artists here in a few minutes. So that was on the 5th that we selected Rolstad. And then a few days later, on the 9th, we took that selection to the Sports Arena Building Committee. The Building Committee heard the proposal, and they asked to actually see all 3 presentations. They wanted to make a little more informed decision than just rubber stamp that. So then on the 18th, Merrill then presented the 3 presentations to the Building Committee, and they recommended Corin Rolstad, which was the same artist that was recommended earlier. In that recommendation, they did also ask, and you'll see it in parentheses, that the City Council to decide if the public art ordinance does apply to the sports arena. So I think that's a conversation we can have after the presentation of the 3 artists. But that's what came out of the Building Committee on February 18th. So that's how we got here. I know that's pretty quick. The first artist that was in the finalists, there's actually a pair of artists, Amy Bauer and Brian Bolden. And I'm going to move through these fairly quick. If you want me to stop, if you have questions about one, please don't hesitate. When we get to their proposals for the sports arena, I'll slow down and explain those a little bit. This is an installation in Texas. It's glass panels with an aluminum structure to relieve it off of the wall. This one in St. Paul is again glass panels with, I believe there's a stainless steel structure behind this one. You're seeing digitally enhanced photographs that are then printed onto those glass panels. This is an installation again in Minnesota. This is a train station. I believe this one is ceramic tiles as opposed to glass. And those are all photographs that the artist has taken, and then they play with depth and movement to try to create the illusion of movement through this piece. So there's several just close-ups. This is in Denver, Colorado. It's at a law center, judicial center. These are ceramic tiles with some bump outs, some 3D effects as well. Again, all the photographs are local photographs, so the artist came to these communities and took photographs and then imposed them on either glass or the ceramic tiles. So this is what they are proposing for the sports arena. The wall you're looking at is the back side of the ticket booth, so it's in the south addition. It'd be the south wall, I guess, of the south addition, so kind of directly across from the grand stairway going up. So these are glass panels. They're 6 feet tall, and the width of it is 45 feet from end to end. So, and then each individual glass panel is 19 inches wide. So they are relieved off of the wall. They vary from 15 inches to 3 inches to kind of create kind of a wave pattern with them. Here you can see the stainless steel structure behind them that attaches them to the wall, the rings, and also see kind of the difference in the relief in making that wave pattern. So. One thing that is interesting about this one, actually all three of them, is you're going to be able to view them from different levels, because as you go up the staircase, you'll be able to view them. So you will get a view similar to this from the top landing. This is just a close-up of the actual artwork. The idea behind this is that the circles represent kind of a bouncing ball kind of movement, and then the images of the people are just to kind of replicate the idea of busyness and things going on and movement and activity in that lobby area. And these are just all three of the panels of the three different panels. Here's with the people removed, so this is just kind of how the circle images look. And a detail of that hardware, that attachment hardware. So that's what they're recommending for the main lobby.
Justin, before you get
Yeah.
beyond that last slide, are those going to move slightly since it's looks like almost a spring-shaped sort of, are they meant to move
I
a
don't
little
believe
bit?
so. They're
Okay.
stainless steel, and the wall is going to be sheetrock, but there'll be 3-inch or 3/4-inch plywood behind it, marine grade plywood. So it's going to be pretty sturdy. The glass is tempered glass, so even if something were to hit it, it's going to be safe, and it's going to be it's not going to shatter if something does hit it. But the intention is not to have it move. So these are the portals, and we call them portals. They're really hallways between the new addition and the existing arena, the main arena. So this will be the east portal. The glass door you're looking at kind of on the right-hand side is the door to the new multi-purpose room. So these are ceramic panels. The language that's in some of the fine detail, this is all language they've pulled from local Hutchinson events. Right there you see the 3A basketball tournament, so the language is meaningful, as well as the photographs are local photographs. So that's downtown Hutch that's in the background, and then this shape was then to represent a basketball with, again, all the language is something meaningful to the community. So the other portal then kind of carries that same theme of the movement or the motion. So these are models that the artist took photographs of, and then I don't know how they exactly did it, but they made it so it appears that they're moving, and the figures are close to life size. Some of the ones that are closer in the foreground are going to be almost life size. So just to give you an idea of the scale. So this is a very large piece of artwork. That's the entire length of it. And here are just some close-ups of what those images are. Again, the idea is just to show movement and activity and busyness within those hallways. And these are all on ceramic tiles. So some of these images, like the one on the right, that person would be very close to life size. So that's our first artist. So again, just to recap, it was the piece in the lobby and then two separate pieces down the portal. Our second artist is Rufus Setter. And we do have a YouTube video here. I want to play. We'll do a much better job of describing.
Here we are casting a life tile in my Waltham, Massachusetts studio. Life tiles are not a product. They're a medium I developed to express myself as an artist. I'm the only artist working in it in the world. The medium is as durable as ceramic, is weatherproof, fade-proof, and maintenance-free. These tiles are cast to extremely specific tolerances. These lenses on the front of the tile translate carefully scrambled images fired on the back of the tile into animated movies for the wall. I'm able to do murals like this one up in Marysville, Kansas, any size, any length, and any height, like this black and white one I did for the Reggie Lewis Track and Athletics Center. How do people react to my work? Well, like this. My murals don't move unless you move. So you develop a relationship with the mural. You run, you hop, you walk to make the images come to life and move. You'll see this happening again in one of my 8 installations at the North Carolina Zoo. More hopping. People also like to touch my work because of the ribs on the surface. This one is at the Miami Zoo. This is industrial strength public artwork, not a slick, full-color commercial medium. Each color is added through a process of sandblasting, painting, and firing. After each tile is carefully aligned in my studio, we sandblast the image into each tile by hand. We then apply a fireable frit, scrape it off, and the frit remains in the blasted area, creating a clear and painted tile. We fuse this in a kiln for 24 hours, then paint the background color on, and kiln fire that for another 24 hours. This creates a 2-color tile. A third color requires a completely separate sandblasting and firing operation. This is what the mural looks like on our display rack, and here's the finished product. Watch that third color go by. When I want to fill a very large public space with my work, and the budget just won't afford that, I combine my life tiles with non-animated murals, some created from high-pressure laminate, others created from ceramic tiles. This dramatically decreases the overall cost per square foot of the installation. Lately, I've been experimenting with pushing my medium to its absolute limit. Check out the way this sea lion moves toward the end of the mural when it enters the dark teal area. Notice the way the sea lion cascades through space, leaving a beautiful trail. Imagine an athlete, for instance, jumping and making a basket. And where do I get the images that I start with for my murals? In the case of this installation in Seward, Nebraska, I started by filming the granddaughter of one of my clients on a track on Concordia campus. I painstakingly lifted the images from the video frames and transplanted them into my final work.
Rufus Butler Cedar. I'm the author of Gallop and the new book Swing. I was a movie maker for most of my life. I was more interested in the visuals and what would happen when I'd edited things together to make magical things happen. I did develop a medium called Life Tiles, with which I do murals all over the world. And these are giant murals that move when you walk by them. After I did the murals, I started focusing on smaller items that you might find in a store. And that's when I took the idea of putting scrambled images behind stripes and go out and I'd film a dog running. I'd break the dog into different animations.
You'll never cover for Maryland.
I will never do this again. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
You're doing fine.
Now I just need to know how to make it go to the big screen. I'm gonna call in IT. All right. Too many people messing with the computer at the same time. Okay. Rufus is proposing to use the same walls that the previous artist was. Again, it's the back side of the ticket booth and the two hallways or portals. He gets his inspiration from kind of historic photographs that tried to capture movement in still photographs. So he explained it very well. It's pretty inspiring on how he came up with the idea, but it's based on these types of photographs that we've all seen. So he did kind of play around with the idea of having life tiles next to static murals. And so this is what this is representing, also just showing kind of how he develops those life tiles. So. And again, the image isn't really moving. It's just as you move, the image moves. It's not. There's no video display or anything like that behind it. So he's proposing behind the ticket booth. Then that's these top three images that would be on those three sections of the wall. So they're fairly large. 8 feet tall by 8 feet by 12 feet or 11 feet, and then 8 feet 9. Or excuse me, they're 8 feet wide, and then the heights vary. So, and then and those are life tiles. So all three of those images would move. Those are just stock images he put in there. Those images could be of a community college athlete dunking a basketball or something. We would have the flexibility to work with him on what the sport was, who the athlete was, those sorts of things. So these are just ideas he put in there. And then the bottom two images then are in the portals or the hallways. Those are ceramic tiles, so those are not live tiles. Those images will not move as you move with it. So it's just a close up, just to give you an idea of the size of the life tiles. And that's approximately what the image would look like as you walked across it. One thing we did talk about a lot was would the faces be recognizable of the athletes? And he said that we had the option to make them recognizable or not. That if we wanted to, he could actually crop the face off of the athlete and put in a model's face, somebody that he shot in Boston, so the athlete would not be recognizable 10 years from now. So there's definitely some flexibility with Rufus. So. Lighting for both the first two applicants are LED lights. Both of them have kind of strip-mounted lights. That we've talked to the architects. The architects didn't think that would be a problem to incorporate that into the building. So, okay. Any questions on Rufus? I know it's pretty quick. And then our final artist was Corin Rolstad. And again, she was the one who has been recommended by both the Art Design Council and the Building Committee. This is an installation in Washington. These are aluminum poles, and I believe they're the blue, the wings are an acetate product. So the idea behind these is to mimic flight. This one is in El Paso, Texas. She told a story that this has become a very, very popular spot for people to take selfies. They've actually had to kind of increase the police in the area and keep it, because it became a traffic hazard, people walking across it, across the roadway to take pictures with this artwork. So, that's the same piece. It's a piece in Florida, just an open pavilion area. They built these shade structures, and this has really become a gathering place for the community. Had a real nice story about that. You also see that she does use LED lights as well, and in this installation, it's multicolor LEDs. This is a suspended piece in Cleveland. Again, it's the acetate. Is kind of it looks like plastic, but it's an acetate product, and then aluminum structure. This one's in Oklahoma State University. The one thing she talked about with the acetate product is it is translucent, so it will cast those colors on the ground beneath it, and we'll see that product is used in her proposal. So these are some wall-mounted installations she's done in Florida. I was just reviewing Merrill's notes, and one thing I didn't catch with this originally was there's wallpaper, industrial strength wallpaper behind those. So the eco-zone or the ecosystem photographs in the background is actually wallpaper, and then everything else then is printed on those glass panels that are reliefed off the wall a little bit. So this is more wall panels of a different material. I don't recall the material on those. And so here is what Corin is proposing for the arena. As you can see, this is more of a sculptural element that's both inside and out. It will be illuminated by LED lights from the ground up. And so this is what it will look like at night. So here you can see it's on the west side on the exterior, and then continues into the interior, and that piece in the interior is suspended from the ceiling, and we'll see a close-up of it here in a little bit. So the poles are aluminum poles, as well as the rings. The rings are aluminum, and then there is acetate component that I talked about inside the rings. You can kind of see it there. I think I've got a better image of it. So on some of these where you see this slightly shaded in area, like right in here, that's going to be an acetate translucent material. So as the sun hits it, it will cast those colors down onto the ground below. Corin is an engineer and an architect, so she speaks the language of the architects. One thing that I was impressed with Corin as well is these would all be installed by local contractors. So she would be there the day they were installed, and she would hire a local builder or somebody to come in and actually hang these. So we would have an expert as far as the installation goes here in town if we ever had an issue with any of them. So this is the suspended piece. It carries the aluminum circles. And also we lose the tree figures, the aluminum poles, but we still have the rod shapes in this piece. One thing is there was some comments about the colors. People, me in particular, thought it looked like Olympic ring circles, and we did talk to her that she's very open to changing color palettes, those sorts of things. She's very, very willing to work with us. I mean, I think she wants us to be very happy with the end product. So if we have those sorts of comments, the Art Design Council has indicated they're very willing to step up and help with some of that technical details, I guess. So these are the two two hallways, again, same hallways that the other two artists were proposing to use. These images, after we talked to her a little bit, or after Meryl did, again, these are flexible. If we don't like the sticks or the rods carried through on the one side and the circles, they should be more than willing to help us work with those images. We've got a couple different options for materials, the industrial wallpaper, or some Lexane panels, which would be much more vandal resistant. So I think her vision is just to fill those hallways. Again, the artwork can kind of be up to us to help guide her what it looks like. So that is all that I had on the presentation. Yeah.
Sorry,
Go ahead.
Justin, I didn't mean to interrupt you. So if the design committee preferred that those mural images be more sports in nature
related, yeah.
or music in nature or whatever we have a vision for the future of the arena encompassing, that could be done.
Yes, I think she would be very open to working with us. Yes.
Great. Thank you.
That's kind of everything I had in the presentation. I know it was kind of quick, and hopefully it covered everything. I do want to invite Teresa up. I know she has some comments that she's prepared, and hopefully she'll fill in where I lacked from the artistic side of things. So.
Thank you. Thanks, Justin. Well, I wanted to, I guess, answer some things I've been reading with Facebook and editorials and so forth. First of all, I want to talk about who we are, the Public Arts Design Council, which was appointed by you, our mayor. We consist of 7 professionals that have expertise in visual arts, in architecture, historical preservation, as well as businessmen and women of Hutchinson, with 4 ex-officio members from the city and from the Humanities Council. So we, a small committee from this group, along with the building committee of the sports arena, were put together and given the task to choose the best artists that fulfilled the criteria that was described by the building committee, and as well as written the criteria for the call of the artist. Something else I'd like to point out is that call of artists went out as a national call. Anyone that is in the public realm who is a public artist had the opportunity to submit their ideas to us. And we were thrilled. I think in the presentation that Justin just gave was 168 entries. And so these 2 committees together were able to come down to 3. And in each one of those judging, it was totally anonymous. We didn't know what the other people were voting for, okay? So back to the criteria that we actually had written. The artwork was to be timeless. It was to create excitement. It was to offer a wow factor for visitors, to add to the spectators' experience, and to help Hutchinson stand out from other communities. The building committee also asked the artwork to have a focal point, to kind of create a sense of an entrance, and to complement the architectural design. And we feel that Corin Ralstad's work, Illuminated Community Spirit, fits all these criterias. If you notice, can I go back? Do I just turn the arrow? I'd like to go to the front of the, where it shows the outside of the arena, the entrance. Yes, okay, day or night, it doesn't matter. Okay. The entrance here, you can see, is activated from the exterior of the building to the interior of the atrium. And the arcs and the circles move up and through both layers of a clear story. And I think what's really the wow factor here is that it is visible. from 11th Street, both daytime and nighttime. And that whether the citizen is just traveling down 11th Street or actually attending one of the events that happens inside the arena, that we all will be able to enjoy the artwork. Because the arena is a multi-use facility for our community, we feel that the artwork speaks to the energy and the excitement of any group of people that will be gathering and entering into this facility, whether they're going to a graduation, a lecture, a concert, or a sports event. And in Corin's own words, she says the artwork embodies the connectivity and interaction of spectators that experience that environment. And I think she really hit on what we were asking for. Now, the budget was not prescribed by us, but in the parameters of the budget, we wanted to get the most effective art piece for the funds allocated. And I think with Corin's concept, you can see that we are getting the biggest bang for our bucks, and we're very happy with that. Also, please note that this was some of the concerns, that Corin's concept is a proposal, and that is very fluid. And the comment's been made about the rings. Are we set with those colors? Do we have the whole spectrum? And absolutely not. She is agreeable to work with the designers of the arena if there needs to be some change. Also, if we can go on down, do I just hit the button? No, okay. There was concerns about the portals or the hallways because she didn't really define what she wanted there. And those were just placed as what we call as artists as placeholders. And so I think this is where someone from the building committee and perhaps someone from our design council could put our heads together and work with Corin and decide a more appropriate design that would hit the legacy of the building. And I think that will be important to a lot of people they expressed on the building committee. And so we have reviewed her references, other people she has worked with, and they said Corin is more than willing to work with the client to get exactly the type of artwork that we would want, and that she is a very good communicator, and that she stayed on time and on budget, and that was very important to us. So I guess in closing, I must say to have an artist of this magnitude, both known nationally and internationally, to create this piece of public art for Hutchinson would show us as a forward-thinking, very sophisticated and cultured society. And I feel that we must seize this opportunity to begin to build the visual legacy of our public art in our community. And I'm willing to answer any questions, the process, or our thinkings, and I have 8 members here and also some members that were there with the building committee the day that we voted, so.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Teresa. I appreciate your work on this. It sounds like it was quite an ordeal, 5 rounds, 168 entries. That's fantastic. I know there are several in the audience who would like to make comments on this item. I again remind you of some parameters. I ask that you address us from the podium so that those at home can hear you. Limit your comments to about 5 minutes and try to keep them as respectful as possible. We also ask that you state your name and address. So is there anyone who would like to comment on this particular agenda item? Good morning.
Good morning. My name's Roger Givens. I live at 121 East 16th Avenue. And I can't compete with the artistic talk about this and who likes what and who doesn't and who wants. A couple of you already know me, and I do have some opinions on what I think the art would be best served for the sports arena. It's 65 years in our city. The impact it's had and the connection it's had with the citizens. Anyway, I did provide, unfortunately I have really cut this down, And I'm going to try to stay on point on one matter first. And, but if you'd like to talk arts and opinions, gosh, I've got them. And I'd be happy to do that later. Now, this is going to be a little bit tedious. Worst thing in the world is give people information or put it on the board and then read it. But so I don't get off target and get a little, lose track off on the current tangent, I'll try to stay right here. It's short. All right, this is on the public art, and I say requirement in this respect. And before I get into this, just so you know, I didn't just wait till this came up today. I actually got involved with this when I found out about it on the 9th of February, I think was the building committee meeting. I think that's when it was, 9th. Anyway, but overall, I was involved in this right after we voted. As an American Legion member and on one of the committee's house, I did get all my, and I've got that paper over there if you'd like to see it. I got my concerns to my American Legion committee member, Bob Fee, and just as the thoughts that I had on the things I knew about, and left it with him to deal with it as he wanted with the committees as you guys have gone through this process for the last year. Okay, so I did get involved. I didn't do anything about art there. I didn't know anything about art. So here we are. I'm back on my list. I'll try to stay here. Anyway, now on the current art question. To me, the Art Council, the Public Art Design Council has been really lesson informative to the people of the public. And that's from the very start. I didn't know anything about it. Nothing was ever mentioned during the public forums promoting passage of the bond issue about taking construction funds away from the building itself to provide a venue for artwork. Where was the Public Art Design Council during the entire lead up to our bond issue vote? That's rhetorical or a question, or a real question. Okay, you may hear, as I heard, and I remembered at the 15th February meeting of the building committee when they brought the art proposals back to be viewed and the one to be sent forward. I heard that we always knew there would be an art component to this project. I can only tell you that I never heard a single reference to art, either private, public, any other form, any other mixture, ever mentioned during the run-up to the vote. I attended public forums from the first to the very last public forum we had prior to our vote on, was it the 8th of April, 2015? It's either 8 or 9, something in there. I also supported the efforts of Hutch Winds. They did a great job of promoting the proposal, the sales tax, what's that called?
Referendum.
Yeah, too many strokes, folks. And if I don't see it, sometimes I can see the word, I can feel it and touch it, I just can't say it. But anyway, I enjoyed what they did because they really got out and helped promote this. But I have to say that even with with Hutch Winds, throughout the entire process, not at least publicly. Now somebody may have talked about it privately, but there wasn't a single public, what I use the word, reference to any art component for the arena bond issue. Now, at this point, I would say that if the City Art Design Council wants the public to pay for artwork, then they need to convince the public to spend additional funds for the public or even a privately approved art for the sports arena once the physical construction of the renovation of the building is as we voted for it. Once it's done, and it's been done the way we tried to have this done by the Hutchinson citizens, once it's completed, then let's talk about this. I believe also, as I said, I believe the Art Council might have kept everything pretty low profile. Because honestly, lucky for you guys on the building committee, a friend of mine, Terry Masterson, cross-country coach, on the January meeting morning, I was at the arena walking. I need therapy.
And he was there, and he happened to mention that there was a public meeting for the building committee. I saw you guys all there then. That's the first time I attended. And lucky you, I've been at each one. I'm the public. I'm in there, and I'm enjoying it because I'm learning a lot about what's going on here. Okay, and I've already moved off my notes. But just to let you know, that's the first I knew about it. Shame on me that I didn't know something had happened before that. I just didn't. Okay, that's that point. Now, I, for one, do not believe that we should use the public tax funds dedicated to the renovation of the sports arena, and I don't believe they should be diverted from the necessary physical improvements of the building. We need to return those funds to, and correct me if I'm wrong, the running track, bleachers, and padding in the North Sports Courts on the north end of the arena that are being diverted or just not available and are being diverted to public artwork. I think that's what I remembered hearing. They were talking about some things that were kind of having to maybe be cut back because of some shortfall in funds, right? Something like that?
I'll address that.
Okay, thank you. Because that's the best I can remember. Anyway, spending the funds on artwork will make some of the improvements, I believe, possibly go away from our children, the very future athletes and students for which this project was undertaken in the first place. I do not believe that we should use the public sales tax dollars included in the bond issue for this artwork. Once the sports arena is finished, we can revisit discussion on a possible art project. Remember, if you will, the Public Art Design Council, as well as Ordinance 2015-17, did not exist until after we, the public, had voted on the public sales tax vote on the sports arena bond issue. That ordinance, and none of this was adopted until 19 May, following that. And now, just so you know, that I'm not against art. Once the current sports arena construction is completed, I would be happy to volunteer my time and bring an art proposal, help bring an art proposal, because I couldn't do it by myself, to the city that'll actually enhance the experience at the sports arena, not overpower it, not be the reason, not be an artist venue to just promote art. I mean, we've got the Botanica, Chihuli's got pretty glass stuff, and we've got this other places that can do that. I go to the sports arena to watch sports, and I'm already getting away from my notes. Anyway, but that's pretty much it. I'll be happy to help, and hopefully we'll get the public involved to come up with a good art proposal to help enhance the building and tie it to the community. Now, lucky you, I took a break from this the other day and started looking at the history of the sports arena as it came to this city.
We're about 10 minutes now, Roger.
Huh?
So, we're at about 10 minutes now.
Oh,
so
we are?
wrap it up.
That's long. I didn't realize that. I'm real close. I got the cool go out. Doing this, I found an article that was in the program back in 1988, which dealt with the sports arena to begin with. And in there, what it stated is, like I said, we took things out and we need to put them back in. There's an article dealing with 1952 interview with Guy Holt, the first American Legion tournament director at Sports Arena. Anyway, it deals on the same issues. You're talking about maybe having cut back. Well, they did too. And here's what he said with an interview. The arena went over budget a little bit. They had to cut out a couple of things, Holt said. They trimmed the number of restrooms. We're having to put bathrooms back in. Anyway, in the original plans, there were going to be men's and women's in all four of the corners. Well, when the cut was made, they cut them in half. So, son of a gun, 65 years later, here we are putting restrooms in. Let's really do the best we can to get as much into this package to the physical building as what we'd planned to do. And then
take some time, do it right, and I'll be glad to come back and talk artwork with anybody and the whole deal with anybody. I kind of like that place. There you go. That's me.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks so much for your comments. You know, I think this agenda item is actually about the panel's recommendation, but the crux of the argument is going to come down to whether or not this ordinance, the ordinance passed should apply to this particular one. But I mean, let's go ahead and hear everyone's commentary, but I think that's really what we're talking about, and we can go over that timeline afterward. Come on up, Charles.
My name is Charles Johnson, and I live at 1022 East Sherman here in Hutchinson, Kansas. Because I'm pretty passionate about arts, I'm going to do something I normally don't do and just read a response that I submitted to the paper yesterday. As a lover of all things Hutchinson, I have grown increasingly dismayed by the rift that seems to be forming in the community over the sports arena. Largely, I do not believe it is my place to become involved in a matter that I have little or no functioning knowledge of, and let the people who have invested their time, talent, and energies into making the project a success do so. I grew up at the sports arena in March. My grandfather, Charles C. Johnston, was a longtime American Legion member and was in charge of parking for a good number of my grade, middle school, and high school years. Every year, about 1 week before the tournament, we would head to my grandparents' garage, gather the signs, change, and posts that had been stored from the previous year, and head to the north side of the sports arena to set up the VIP parking lot. Throughout the tournament, my family would attend, enjoying some of the best basketball I have ever seen. For someone who is not sports-oriented, it is saying something that I was 100% in support of renovating the arena. One of the major selling points to me was that the sports arena could become a community venue with use of the building to be spread across the entire year with a variety of community groups involved. Having been involved in a lot of community building over my lifetime, I can tell you without a doubt that a facility can both unite and polarize people. With the optimism surrounding the recent signing of the NJCAA contract, I was disturbed to see our chance for unification being derailed. As a member of the group that was instrumental in passing the Percent for Public Art Ordinance, I was particularly dismayed by the argument leveraged in the Hutchinson News letter to the editor recently made, trying to encourage the City Council to eliminate the role of public art, and more specifically, the Public Art Design Council in the sports arena project. My dismay came in part that the citizen writing it believed and tried to disseminate the belief that the citizens of Hutchinson had no say in the Percent for Public Art inclusion on the sports arena project, and further, the actual selection of the art of the project. This is simply not true. An entire citizen collective was involved in the presentation of the Percent Public Art Ordinance to the City Council. It was broadly publicized in the Hutchinson News and also on social media. In fact, the council meeting where it was presented was broadcast on TV, as is the custom of the City of Hutchinson. And when the ordinance was passed, no citizens of Hutchinson spoke in opposition to it. This ordinance included all capital improvement projects, which certainly covers the sports arena. Foisting it is such an interesting word to use to denigrate the process of the Public Art Design Council. The PADC is a council that can be joined by application and with appointment by the City Council, and more specifically, the mayor. I would assure you, since I know a number of members on the council, that they are simply trying to create a welcoming, inviting space which speaks not only to what the sports arena might be used for, but what its impact on the community could be. And certainly if concerns were brought up at the public event where these designs were presented, community feedback would have been an instrumental part of the decision made by the council. But as I understand it, nothing was said, and therefore no problem with the presentations or the other committees involved in the reviewing of proposals requested that the City Council sign off on the project, even though by law they are under no requirement to do so. And I assure you, there are many, many people who attend sporting events regularly who are thrilled about the inclusion of public art in the project. And more specifically, this regular attendee is thrilled with the selection of the abstract art to be included. It offers Hutchinson the opportunity to showcase itself not only as a welcoming community, but also one that is forward-thinking. A vital commitment if Hutchinson should expect to achieve the growth we all constantly talk about, because people don't come to a community to just take advantage of its resources. They come, and more importantly, they stay, so they can feel a special draw to come back when they have to leave. A building isn't responsible for that. People are.
Thank you, Charles. Are there others in the audience who would like to address the council on this issue? Come up, Carrie.
Okay. Like Charles, I'm going to read some quick written announcement or written words so that I can process. Okay. I'm Carrie Mayu of 417 East 15th, and I'm a member of the Public Art Design Council. I'm not an artist, but a writer and program officer at the Hutchinson Community Foundation who is passionate about community building. I spent the evening with many of you last night at the Sports Arena for the Chamber's annual meeting, where Jason Ball reminded us all of the Hutch Wins campaign that led to the public vote in favor of its renovation. The rhetoric throughout that campaign, and now that it is becoming a reality, has been that we want a place to be proud of. We want a modern, functional, and attractive facility that can compete for events beyond the NJCAA tournament. The architecture will make it modern, the improved layout and facilities will make it functional, and the art will make it attractive. But art is about so much more than aesthetics. Through art, we reveal our humanity, we celebrate our collective spirit, we make our culture visible, and we show pride in our creations. The Knight Foundation's Soul of the Community initiative surveyed some 43,000 people in 43 cities and found that social offerings, openness, and welcomeness, and the aesthetics of a place, its arts, parks, and green spaces, ranked higher than education, safety, and the local economy as a driver of attachment. I would argue that attachment is what we want for our community. A sense of place that inspires our residents to stay and attracts others to share our energy. Our culture should be weaved into the fabric of our city, especially the places that we all own, like our parks, our parking garages, our streetscapes, and our gathering places. In creative placemaking, both a theory and a practice that our community is working toward, partners across sectors strategically shape the physical and social character of a neighborhood, town, or region around arts and culture. Creative placemaking animates public spaces, rejuvenates structures and streetscapes, improves local business viability and public safety, and brings diverse people together to celebrate, inspire, and be inspired. And Corinne Ralstad's proposal for dynamic shapes and structures that will be on the interior and exterior, activating the space with color and light, day and night, is creative placemaking for our sports arena and for the surrounding neighborhood and our city. I understand there are competing priorities for the sports arena renovation, but art isn't nice, it is necessary. By building and reinforcing community culture, public art can act as a catalyst for community generation or regeneration. Art works to support creative, economically competitive, healthy, resilient, and opportunity-rich communities, and it is an essential part of building a strong community, a winning community. I'll end with a quote I saw on Facebook yesterday pertaining to this very conversation. When Winston Churchill was asked to cut arts funding in favor of the war effort, he simply replied, "Then what are we fighting for?" Thank you.
Thank you, Carrie.
Well, it's hard to follow, Carrie. Thank you. My name's Mark McLaughlin. I live at 201 West 19th. I'm retired military and a proud ambassador for the Chamber of Commerce. And I don't have any facts or figures here. I just want to give one man's perception, having been born in Grace Hospital and raised in Hutchinson and joined the military after high school. I have a vested interest in this community, as I think everybody here does. Some of the issues that I heard that have not been addressed, art of this scope has to be incorporated in the construction. To construct the building and then go back and try to add art to it, I think you just create more work, more problems, more headache, more cost. The artists that were attracted to provide these public art to be incorporated in the sports arena, I think by the presentations have shown that they have the expertise, and I was impressed by all the things that I saw. So I think they're more than qualified to do this. I think the thing that nobody really addressed here, we are in the eye of the nation for certain events, as in the basketball tournament, and hopefully other events. We are the focal point of the nation. Since as long as I can remember, since I'm not over 65 yet, the sports arena has looked pretty much like the sports arena. It's a box. People that want to go there just to enjoy the sporting events, that's great, because that's what goes on there. But I think it also needs to have an appeal, an aesthetic appeal that attracts the admiration of the nation when we are the focal point. And I think art does this, and we've already discussed prior the need for public art, and we embraced that and went with that. I think this is very much what I had envisioned for the purpose of public art. So, you know, if we're going to be the spotlight or the focal point, we need to present more than just a box building where basketball is played. It needs to be inviting and attractive and make a statement for Hutchinson, Kansas, saying, here we are. We're not just a speck in the middle of the country with a square box putting on national events. I think we need to look the part, and it bodes well for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Thank you.
Others in the audience who would like to address the council?
Good morning, Mayor, City Council. Rudy Rodriguez, 519 West 10th, Apartment B. I'll make my comments brief this morning. I like to be involved in the community as much as I can. The city of Hutchinson is very important to me. I've lived here since 1985. I am also a member of the Public City Arts Council as well. And I wear many hats in the city, and one of those is I write a community column every other Friday in the Hutchinson News. And one of the first columns I wrote, I titled, I'm trying to think of the name of the column as I wasn't prepared to speak, but I believe I titled it Hutchinson, a Sleeping Giant, with a question mark. And if I recall, the first sentence that I wrote in that column was, Hutchinson, a sleeping giant, you bet it is. And the summary of that column that I wrote was that we have the potential in this city to do so many great things. And at that time, which was a little over a year ago, there were a lot of great things on the horizon. The sports arena project, the Hutch Wins initiative, had not passed at that point. We did not know whether it was going to pass or whether it was going to fail. And I was a part of that committee. And as a part of that committee, I went on television, network television, to speak about the great things the city has to offer. I went on radio, Mr. Gibbons with Bob Fee, as you are well aware of, to talk about the project, to talk about what passing that project means to the city of Hutchinson. We went, Bob Lutz came to speak to your Rotary meeting yesterday, Miss Mayor, and I had Bob Lutz write an article about the sports arena. So the citizens of Hutchinson voted, and that passed, which brings us to today, the public art. And Mr. Gibbons, I appreciate your passion for this. I disagree with some of the things you said, but number one, I appreciate your passion and I respect you for that. To say the Public Arts City Council is low-key, I strongly disagree with that. As you can see by the presentations given by the artists, it is very high-key. The committee has put a lot of work into the presentation. The artists have definitely put a lot of work into the presentation. We've had 160 artists. We have looked at over 2,000 pieces of artwork. I tell you, I spent many nights in my living room looking at those pieces of artwork, and we are very privileged to have the great talent to present to you today for consideration. With regards to the sports arena, art, and children, as a member of USD 308 Board of Education last meeting, had the privilege of 20 to 25 children coming in front of the Board of Education presenting various pieces of artwork. And to see the emotion on those children's faces with regards to how pleased they were with the amount of work that they put into their art was very pleasing to me to see. And they spoke about their projects, and they talked about what art meant to them, what it meant to education, and then we had teachers speak as well. And of course, you know, we are battling for dollars every year in Topeka with regards to education, and art always is low on the totem pole. But the point I want to make with that is art is important to the children of Hutchinson, and I can speak for them. I am proud to speak for those children. So I think that the projects, or I know that the projects presented today will mean a lot to those children. And I just ask the commission to close their eyes and envision 11th Street, driving down 11th Street, whether it be daytime or nighttime, and starting at 11th and Plum and looking at our nationally, our globally known Kansas Cosmosphere, and looking at this, at the rockets that we have, the spaceships that we have, looking at the improvements that we have made on Gowan Stadium, and vision what it, or look back at what it was, 5-6 years ago. Continue on to Stringer Arts Fine Center, and then go on to the sports arena, which last year we didn't know what the future meant for that arena. Now we do know, and now we're going to add the icing on the cake. So I'm excited. We're at this point, and I urge you to look at the art presented today and pass this $230,000. It is a great investment for this community. And going back to the column that I wrote, it's time to awaken the giant, and it has been awoken with the number of advancements that we have made in this city, and it's due to the hard work and dreams of the commission. And just today, we've heard the dreams of Sandy Lake are going to come true. The River Rats, which I'm not familiar with that group. They have dreams, but it's dreams, it's vision, and let's keep the vision of the city alive. So thank you for the time.
Thank you, Rudy.
Thank you.
Are there others who would like to address the council? Okay, are there questions or comments from the council? And also, could I get a brief timeline? Do you have that available? We've discussed that a while back about how the percent for art presentation was originally took place in February or March prior to the referendum.
Yeah, March 3rd was really the group brought the final proposed ordinance. The council then directed staff to prepare final drafts and bring it back to the city council, which we did on May
19th.
May 19th, right, and it was approved. The issue of whether public art ordinance was in place before the vote, I mean, there's no question it wasn't officially in place. But I want to point out that on May 19th, Councilman Daveline, I believe, asked the city manager, myself, if public art or this project would be a part of the public art ordinance. And it was just a general comment that, we're building a $29 million facility. It ought to have some component of art. And so we kind of from there went with the direction. There wasn't a vote taken by the council, nor was there any dissent that we shouldn't move forward with that. So the public art component of this project has been known to the building committee since last summer at some point in time, because it's been in the budget. I will say there was a lot of conversation during those meetings about that being a part of the budget, comparing it to other things. The question of what we voted on April 7th. We didn't vote on 3 gyms. Today we have 3 gyms. We voted on a concept, basically, and we didn't vote on a specific nice locker for the men's basketball team. We voted on a concept, and so I think that's really where we're at today, and I'm not sure there's even really a question of whether the public art ordinance applies or not. We went into the project with the idea that there would be a component. The $230,000 that doesn't represent 1% of the total project. It was a number we used at the time because we weren't sure really what the estimate was going to be for the project, and so it was a conservative number, but for the most part very close to that. So that's probably something the council needs to really decide on at this point in time and understand that, you know, so we can kind of dispel the argument of which was in place before the vote and which wasn't, so.
I'd like to add too, and I don't want this to reflect that I have this kind of free time, but I went back and watched all the YouTube videos.
Hey.
And there was actually a comment made on March 3rd at 1 hour, 38 minutes, and 28 seconds, if I notated this correctly. And I make horrible notes, so I don't know if Merrill asked it or Merrill was asked this, but there was some sort of rhetorical question about the sports arena in consideration of public art at that time as well.
That's correct, and Merrill had some notes for me, March 3rd, it was mentioned, and
As
then
well.
the May 19th that I
Again, no
referred to.
votes, no nothing, I don't mean that, but it was in the conversation, I should illustrate.
Yeah, I mean, I think I inferred that because we had directed Paul to prepare an ordinance, that we were proceeding with that. And yes, the sports arena project and anything else that we were going to do. I mean, let's face it, we voted on the
Fire station.
fire stations long before this was actually in print. So, I mean, to me, there was never any question that public art would not be part of the whole project. And I think we have to remember too, very much like Charles said, Mr. Rodriguez said, we're looking at expanding the vision of the sports arena. It is not going to be just a place for sports. I'm hoping that we'll be able to utilize it in far different and more diverse ways once it's finally put together.
And I would also just add that there is going to be a component for legacy art, in that we'll have the Hall of Fame that no one's really talking about. So to think that we're moving away from this wonderful legacy that our community has had, and we're doing something abstract, and which is not in and of itself horrible, but to some people it is. And I'm happy to hear that there are components of even that abstract piece that could incorporate sports. But again, it was sold to the community as the arena.
Yeah.
And everything that might mean for the future.
I want to thank Mr. Givens. He's been certainly overpowered today by the number of speakers who were very much in support. Not that I necessarily agree with you, Mr. Givens, but I do want to thank you. I think that certainly $230,000 is not a small amount of money, and that having public debate and public discussion is well worth it. And I'm pleased that someone is willing to take a position that brings about the debate that we're having. That has value as well. So I wanted to thank you on that. I also want to comment. We're talking about March 3rd, May 19. What came first? Did the chicken or the egg come first? And I'll just say that unless there's something legally that prohibits, and I don't think there is, that the value of the art is what is important, or what we judge to be the value of the art, not whether something came first or second. And I think I'll just stop there. I think again, it's the value or the assessed value of the art that is the important element.
Well, regardless of whether or not we had that ordinance, if Carrie's group would have never been in the equation, there would have been art elements included in this project. Am I correct?
I
in
would
saying
think
that?
without a doubt. I mean, it's, as I said earlier, a $29 million facility, and you want to create an attractive environment, and people just have a different opinion on what art, which art it is, and that's really what we're talking about in a sense is art is art. So.
Well, a lot of the comments that I've received, a lot of the feedback is that we have much more pressing issues, and that can't be argued with. But if we waited until we addressed every poverty issue, every crime issue that this community had, we wouldn't have one flower planted in downtown Hutchinson. We can't look at things in such a narrow way.
I would hope that as we act on this today, that we remember going back a year ago that from the get-go, from the inception of the initial presentation by Merrill and the Arts Council, that truly the city and the city council and the staff has followed a organized process. And I think that's really been important, that they have followed a process And this is new to all of us in terms of this new ordinance. And I compliment the staff. I really appreciate the passion that the Arts Council have toward the launching of the ordinance itself. And so, I don't think there's been anything that, other than everything has been above board. And particularly, I was most pleased 10 days or so ago that the building committee listened to Teresa and her subcommittee of the Arts Council and unanimously recommends to the City Council the selection of Corrine as the preferred artist. And I think that speaks well of the building committee itself, that they were unified. Initially, they were not. There was some differences of opinion, but ultimately, as we've learned and appreciated what Corrine presents to us, that I think it's going to be a terrific addition to the City Council. So I'm completely in support of the recommendations and certainly acting upon this morning.
Roger, did you have something else you wanted to say? If you could please come to the podium.
At the time, I had one thing that I was going to ask, but now I have two questions I'd like to ask. One, can somebody tell me why then, back when we voted for the sports arena renovation, why through all the public forum, tours, everything that I saw in public print, why didn't we ever ask the citizens if we knew there was going to be a public art component, why didn't we ever ask the citizens or include that in the presentations? I didn't hear it. I was at all of them. Man, I could have given them, but I was at them. And that was one question I have, because, and I didn't catch the little deals where you guys talked to somebody here and you worked up this ordinance and talked about doing public. By the way, I love those statues on Main Street, especially the boys and girls reading books. Those are my favorites. Now, second question. I just heard it said that, now, I was at the meeting, the 18th February meeting of the building committee, when the Art Council took all three proposals back out to the building committee. They showed pretty much what you just saw out there. And then, I'm just gonna do it this way, they picked the third proposal, the Corin Rolstead proposal up. I mean, Ron Sellers did, right? The chairman? At that point, there was, and said, we're voting to send this one to City Council. Now, am I wrong? Because I snooze. John, you were there, Steve, John. I did not hear you guys decide, do we want 1, 2, or 3? Let's vote. I didn't catch the vote on that. I didn't.
The vote was 7-0, and it's a recorded vote, and it's part of the minutes of that meeting.
Well, then I missed it.
A motion made by Bob Fee.
Okay, I did not see the three proposals voted on. My apology. I thought I was paying attention.
There was a motion that included the recommended art and also included the caveat that the council determine whether the public art ordinance applies to this project.
I do remember somebody saying, I defer to the experts. I know who it was, but I heard that. But
Okay.
no,
Yeah.
I didn't really see. That was my thought.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you again.
Did you have a comment, hon?
My name is Lavella Kelly, and I've been involved in the sculpture project downtown, a lot of different things. But I have a proposal. I build a new house, and I hire an interior decorator and a landscape artist. Instead of calling it public art, let's just call it interior decorating and outdoor decorating. Maybe that would make more sense. However,
That's interesting.
you know, it's exactly the way it is.
It does seem to incite some connotations that people don't like.
Right.
Art.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either, because I think there's so many different feelings about art. I know there are a lot of feelings about the art at 23rd and the roundabout. But you know what? If you ever take the time to park off of that roundabout and really spend some time looking at it, especially when the wind is blowing and the sun is shining, it's an incredibly beautiful piece of artwork. But you don't see that because you're driving around it. So I don't know, let's call it interior decorating and landscape artist and, you know, use a little vision.
Thank you, Lavella.
Thank you, Lavella.
Appreciate it.
John, I think you touched on it really well. Roger's question about why it wasn't asked to the citizens about the art, because I don't think the Hutch Wins Committee was tasked with presenting a final project. I remember the running track was still in talks before the referendum, which I was excited about. That's no longer in there. It's very much morphed according to input from the community and input from the building committee.
Yeah, it happened, once that ball got rolling, it happened fairly quick, and the Hutch Wins campaign got on. I mean, it was a question, do we have enough time to adequately prepare for an April 7th election? I don't remember what the month we actually started, but it was questionable whether we did. Group said, now let's get it done, and obviously the rest is history. So a lot of details. I mean, when you're selling something like that, it's a concept, and I don't think you can talk about every specific aspect of the project because you just don't know at that time until you get into design and what budget allows. So.
Well, I know that we could go on and on for hours about this particular issue, but are there any other questions or comments before the
I think
the
you
action item?
had kind of hit the nail on the head earlier when you mentioned it was kind of a two-piece. As it was presented to us, an artist was recommended with the caveat that if we felt that it was, and I don't want to speak out of turn or for anybody else, but it seems like the consensus is that the art should be in the project. And then it's just then a matter of if that is in fact the correct artist and artwork. If I'm misspoken.
Sounds
or,
like you summed
tell
it
me.
up pretty well.
Yeah.
Do we need that in the form of a motion?
I think we have a motion.
Well, and that's
Well, I mean, really, to deal with the caveat that the city council needs to determine whether the percent of public art applies to this project, I guess I would personally like to see it on the record that there's no questions that either the council does or does not determine whether the percent of the applies to the project.
Paul's frowning.
He does that a lot, though.
Yeah, he does.
Let me just give you some direction, council. Okay, the reason I'm not real thrilled about the percent applied is you may not be spending the percent.
True.
You're at
spending less.
230,000 here
Yeah.
with this contract. Your percent is probably more than that. So rather than saying that the ordinance applies and it's 1% and then we have to go back to the project and find more funds to be made available for additional art, let me tell you this. The public passed the sports arena project. They provided the funding for it with the sales tax. Every component of that project and the administration of that project is under your authority. You don't need anything else.
I
So would that
appreciate
be-
that, Paul, but I really believe in respect of the building committee and the arts council, that some policy or some formal action that we support, that public art does apply to the sports arena, would be in order.
Do you want us
We
to
don't
do a
have to
go
include the
art
percentage.
cheer?
Pardon me?
Like a go art cheer? Is
Yeah.
that what you're saying?
Well, I see what you're saying. The action or motion before us
It's
doesn't
separate.
specifically
No,
say
it's
what
separate.
was brought up from the.
That's a separate item,
And
in my
I
judgment.
I think John's onto something because there were some members of the building committee who voted in the
I've been
affirmative.
part of all of that, and
only
I can tell you
because
it was important that because I encouraged that the building committee consider a unanimous position, whatever that was, to bring to the council, and I think that's what they did.
Is there any way to address that by
Well-
just adding verbiage to the motion? or-
I guess, just one thought is the motion before you would really answer that question, does
Oh,
it not?
if you
I don't know.
move to
I'm
approve,
just
then-
kind of thinking what Paul's thinking.
Be redundant, yeah.
But, if you feel strongly about adding something inside that motion, it's up to you.
Time gets away,
Yeah.
issues change. I just, again, it was
Well, and-
it was a definite caveat to Mr. Fee's motion.
And it did take us back to May when we brought it. We talked about it, but we didn't take real action, so maybe that's where you're coming from.
We could always add on the end of that motion with the understanding that a component of public art is an important piece of this project.
Well, all five of us were on the council on May 19th. And I recall having the discussion that's been referenced, that public art would be a part of, it was the discussion about the public art ordinance, that the arena and public art would be, public art would be part of the arena project. I think we affirmed it then by the vote on the public art ordinance. I don't have any problem, a little bit different from you, John, with affirming that, but I don't know that I want to tie it to that ordinance necessarily, other than we affirm that we expected and desire for public art to be part of the sports arena
I would
project.
just like to see it part of the record.
Yep.
Can I think,
Please do.
make clarification from my perspective? Correct me if I'm wrong, but the ordinance also talks about upkeep of installations, specifically 20% of any budget can go to that. Is that correct?
That's correct, yeah.
That would seem to solve the problem to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
That's correct.
John, I would be in favor of adding that to the end if we didn't want to, if you wanted some
Sure.
wording. With the understanding,
Sure of that. And I think that would be acceptable, just so we are being forthright with the building committee's recommendation. And that's, I think, important for the long-term public record.
It's true, because again, as I'm reading it,
Yes,
the
when you
way
when you
Bob
read-
had presented it,
exactly.
it was contingent upon us
Right.
determining whether or not that was a part of the project or whatever. So, yeah, if it's kosher to use a term, but if it's okay to add verbiage to it as the motion, and maybe we're not even to the point of the motion yet, we haven't discussed the artist.
so with the understanding that a public art component was always an important part of this project, is there a way that you would feel comfortable, or are you really looking for a separate motion?
No, we can certainly incorporate it as long as, again, as part of the record is all I'm asking.
I'm not opposed as long as that's, yeah.
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't really want to
And-
tie it to the
yeah.
1%
No,
element.
no,
but,
no,
Yeah.
no.
Just the
I'm not-
anticipated or
no.
expected or whatever.
Right.
That public art would be a
Because
component
I
of
don't want
sports arena.
people to come back, and Mr. Fee in particular, and say, well, now what action did the council take? Well, yeah, we confirmed it. Well, if we make it a part of the record, it seems to me, I think we've done the responsible thing.
Should we talk art?
As a component of the public art ordinance, how can we best phrase that?
Okay,
so it
this is
doesn't
how I
trap us?
tentatively phrased it, with the understanding that public art was always an important component of the sports arena project.
Or simply that
Is
public art will be a
part
component of the
Part of the
project.
project.
And just,
Mhm.
I guess we would have to say that we determine whether that the percent for public art does apply to this project.
That the
However,
public art ordinance does apply, rather
Public
than
art
put-
ordinance does
rather
apply.
than putting in the
That would answer the
percentage.
Public
question
art ordinance
Bob
does apply.
proposed.
The public art, yeah. Would that work, Paul?
Is that gonna,
That the public art ordinance applies?
and I haven't, it's been months since I've read the public art ordinance. Is
Mhm.
it a very strong, absolute 1%, or up to 1%, or?
yeah,
Yeah, good.
it's,
You want it.
it's pretty firm.
It is, it's a 1% of qualifying expenses for the sports arena project. It's all construction expenses, so that would push the amount to roughly 260, 258,000 as opposed to 230.
Okay. So we want to get away from.
Does the ordinance require that 1% to be allotted and spent towards that, or does it allow for up to 1%
It requires 1%.
Required.
Yeah,
to be set aside for art?
yes.
But we've also deviated from the ordinance somewhat in the review process where we had a subcommittee
We
of the
did.
art council, the building committee, typical, I mean, I think the way the ordinance reads, if I'm not mistaken, it's the art committee that actually makes that recommendation to the city council.
Right.
I think we're
noticed that
back on
deviation.
track with that, though.
Yeah.
with the
Yeah, oh yeah,
process.
yeah.
I think we're
Yeah,
back
this was a little,
we're on track.
this is unique, I think.
So we're back to a more nebulous addition to the end of that motion.
We're back to what?
A more nebulous, like, not saying that the public art ordinance applies, but that public art should
I
be
think
a
we'll use a
component.
word like we expected, or we
Mhm.
support, whatever, but that art be a part of the, public art be a part of the sports arena.
About this project, yeah.
Public art be
That's
part
fine.
of the sports arena project. I think that's pretty straightforward.
Is there a motion to that effect?
Yeah, I mean, again, I'd be willing to make that motion as long as everybody's on board with the chosen artist, again, to separate the two
Oh,
or whatever.
yeah.
Because what's presented to us is the panel's recommendation, which is
Yeah.
the Rolstad
Right.
art.
We're
No,
adding
I
our
think we're,
piece of the puzzle there.
yeah, no, I think we're all in favor of the committee's recommendation.
I do want to comment. I do like the outside-inside
Yeah.
aspect of her art.
Good.
That it's visible
too.
all the time, day or night, and that even some of the inside art is visible
Mhm.
all the time. They were all good artists, but that particular piece of it, and I'm not an artsy person, so I defer to artsy people. But again, in terms of being visible, and it does, I think, is a wow factor.
Sure.
And somebody mentioned that in the comments, and I like that.
With regards to, and we didn't call them hallways, we called them
Portals.
portals, thank you. I might also recommend to the Art Council, maybe that'd be a great place for public input as well, since there's nothing set in stone as to what would go there, whether it be rings, whether it be, again, a tie-in to art, music, sports, whatever. Not to complicate matters, of course, but when the Art Council was found, it was found on the premise that public input would be involved as well, which again, I think was established it was, but that might be another avenue to involve the public as well within those portals. And with that being said,
You're gonna make the motion.
I think I'm gonna try anyways.
That's good.
I'll make an attempt. I would move to approve the selection panel's recommendation to hire Corin Rolstead as the artist for the Sports Arena Public Art for the sum of $230,000. Let's see here. Based on the fact that the council did determine that the percent for public art does apply to this sports arena project. People like the verbiage on that.
Get rid of the percent.
Uh,
Get rid of the word percent.
Okay.
The
Public
public
art
art.
applies to
The sports arena
this
project.
sports arena project. And direct staff to prepare an agreement with Corin Rolstead for the commission of the public art.
Linda loves it when we do that. Don't
Right.
you?
I love it.
Yeah.
Go back and forth. Wonderful.
Is there a second?
I'd second.
Before you ask for a vote, did you get it, Linda? What is
I
the
did.
verbiage about the expectation of public art?
The motion is to approve the selection panel's recommendation to hire Corin Rolstad as the artist for the sports arena public art for the sum of $230,000, and that council did determine that public art applies to the sports arena project, and direct staff to prepare an agreement with Corin Rolstad for the commission of the public art.
Thank you.
She's amazing, isn't she?
That's what I was trying to say the whole time.
Yeah.
Further comments?
If 1% is required, and you're voting on 230,000 and 1% exceeds that 230,000, then
We
you're
took-
in conflict there.
We took the 1% out of the
We
final
took the
one.
1% out.
Out of
Yeah,
this,
we took the
yeah.
1% out.
Additional comments? Hearing none, please call the roll.
Deckent,
Yes.
Inskeep,
Yes.
Dave Line,
Yes.
Soldner,
Yes.
Kairos de Carvalho.
Yes, next item, please.
Item 7F, consider proposal for Rice Park splash pad.
Good afternoon. Justin Combs,
Okay, where's lunch
Director of
gone?
Parks and
Mr. Manager?
Facilities. I didn't get the lunch order in.
No, you didn't get the votes there.
If you'll remember back during the CIP process for the 2016 budget, we talked about Splash Park at Rice Park, or Splash Pad at Rice Park. And our conversation revolved around a 50-50 split between city funding and private funding. we are getting near the point that we need to start moving forward with the design if we're going to have the splash park open this summer, which is was always the intent. So on February 9th, I received 5 responses to an RFP I put out for a design, supply, and install splash pad at Rice Park. I then on the 19th, I assembled a selection committee. The committee was myself, Craig Morrison, the assistant Parks and Facilities director, Carrie Mayu, Carrie's still here, and Ted Nelson from Hutch Rec. He's a superintendent of aquatics and fitness, to review the five responses. After reviewing of those, we did select a Water Odyssey product. Water Odyssey is the same manufacturer that we have at Fairgrounds Park. We had two distributors that proposed Water Odyssey products, and we decided with Athco. Athco we've done a lot of business with. They're out of Kansas City. They've done the most recently the Cary Park playground, as well as the Orchard Park, the large playground in Orchard Park. So they're the distributor then of Water Odyssey products. What I have on the screen here is not the final design, but more of a concept of what we could get for $275,000. The reason I say $275 and not $300 is I'm retaining $25,000 for utilities. In the RFP, I stated that the city would be responsible to get electricity, water, and sewer to the site. So that's the difference between the 275 and the 300. So the one that's shown on the screen, like I said, is just an example. We don't have a final design. This is kind of the starting point. There are some elements on here that are probably more expensive than I would have liked, so most likely we'll change out some of the taller elements and get more bang for a buck, increase the footprint of it a little bit. There's also some remote activation pieces that are pretty costly that I would get rid of. So the final design, if we can move forward with Athco, will probably look something similar to this, but probably a little bit larger. As far as the funding goes, we do have $150,000 in the city budget, and then the remaining $150,000 then will be coming through private donations and through grants. We've got $30,000 in grants from Hutchinson Community Foundation. I believe there was another grant as well.
From the Justice Foundation.
Yeah, from the Justice Foundation. Yeah, go ahead. Oh, yeah. And we're working on the private donation piece.
I'm Aubrey Abbott Patterson with Hutchinson Community Foundation, 2708 Tyler. And I just sent an email to John this morning, but it was late. $30,000 from the Fund for Hutchinson, $30,000 from the Justice Foundation, and as of now, another $17,500 from a myriad of individuals. We're trying to get to $25,000 there. And then another local businessman, Mert Sellers, who's committed to the remainder of the project for that private investment.
That's incredible.
Mert has been a longtime proponent of activities that are free and open to the public, especially families. And his heart is in this project. So, good. I'm sorry, I just wanted to have the right number for you.
That's fine, thank you. And one thing that John did ask me when I sent the memo over to him was, do we run a risk of approving this today and not having the funding in hand? I spoke with Athco, and we're not to the point of no return until we place the order with Water Odyssey. So even signing the agreement today, if something were to fall through, I really don't anticipate that it will. Athco is more than understanding of the situation we're in. But in order to meet this summer deadline, we've kind of got to get things moving along. And that's why we're doing a design, supply, and install, as opposed to just a design and then contract out a separate installer as well. So it is my recommendation to move forward with Athco, and to allow the mayor to sign the proposal not to exceed $275,000 with Athco. I did skip over the location within Rice Park. We are recommending to actually locate this where the tennis courts are. The tennis courts are pretty rough shape. Tennis is really a dead or dying sport. We don't have a lot of usage of the tennis courts. We do have some nice some nice courts at Fairgrounds Parks that we are.
Just
we-
gained a few enemies there, didn't you?
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. In general, we do have some very dedicated tennis folks. In general,
Yeah,
so.
there again, Northwest Hutchinson gets hit again, right, Aubrey?
But within the park, the site's really ideal. It's close to parking. It's surrounded by almost 3 sides by the walking trail. So the idea is that a parent could drop a child off, an older child, and play, while the parent then could walk the trail and still have visual contact with the child. So.
There's lighting on the courts as well.
There
Does that
is.
lend itself to
electricity? We've
Yeah.
talked about that a couple times, and the lights actually right now will probably remain depending on what the final design is. So we could actually light it. We normally don't close our other 2 water parks down till 10 p.m. So there's some twilight hours that we could actually light the water park, the splash pad up, and we can put timers on those lights. We have timers on them now that will only allow them to operate during certain hours and only for so long. So.
Justin, just a question on the bonding. Will you bond the whole project or just the city's portion of the?
Just the city's portion, just the
city's portion?
150, yes.
Very good, okay, thank you.
And the water system, is it one of the, I don't want,
Recirculation,
recirculatory,
yeah.
or, yeah.
Yeah, it's a recirculation system. And we don't have finalized whether we'll use UV as a disinfectant. We will use chlorine to disinfect, but we may use UV as a backup. Because these sites aren't monitored, it's always nice to have a backup disinfection system. as
And that
well.
helps save on water expenses, the cost of water, I should
Yes,
say.
the recirculation system does, because we're not continually using more water.
water, new
At
water.
Fairgrounds, or at Avenue A, which is a much smaller system, that water is not recirculated. At Fairgrounds it is.
It is.
And all the modern systems are all recirculated, yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, there's I don't remember now what it is, 1,500 gallon holding tank that'll be buried near the site to actually hold the water. Yeah.
You put a heater in there, I'll go down there.
Please don't.
Maybe not certain times of year, I guess that wouldn't be necessary.
I do have a couple other images I forgot to show here, just some details of the individual components and then an overhead view.
It's so great that this could be done as a public-private partnership. It's great.
Glad
Very
that
much
it's
so.
coming to fruition.
It's nice to start and end a meeting with parks.
Yeah.
Not so
Yes.
shabby.
And Rice Park is such a jewel of a park as well. I mean, I always think of Cary as being the preeminent one, which it is, but Rice ties right into it, and it'd be a great, with the bike path connecting the two, and just a great additional feature.
Further questions or motion on this item?
Oh.
Please.
That is short.
It's short. Tennis isn't dying, and I wish I'd have had enough time to get the 40 kids together that were down here for the vape meeting. They're probably the same ones up there on the courts at 10 o'clock at night playing soccer. They don't play tennis, they play soccer. But they use it, and they're there until the lights go off. So I take exception with the fact that they're not utilized, because there's either playing tennis or the kids are there, and they'd start late spring, clear through fall, usually in the evenings. And there's a whole bunch of dirt up there that this could be put at before you tore out the tennis courts. There's 2 pieces of gymnasium or playground equipment that could be moved. Would probably be closer to the restrooms where the water would probably be come from. But they could be moved over a little bit. I don't know how big that thing is. He didn't say. But let's just, like I say, there's a lot of dirt out there, and you can move the walking track. It's not necessary to have it where it is.
Thanks,
Thank
Gene.
you.
Justin, what was the reasoning behind it? Was it just that we didn't have the funds to refurbish the courts, or that they're underutilized?
In my opinion, they are underutilized, and also the general condition of them. We took a few core samples. There's only about 3 inches of asphalt in most of it, so it's cracked pretty bad. It's beyond the point that we can just go in and put a new surface on it. If we were going to make those nice kind of competitive courts, we would have to completely resurface it. We've come in and filled some of the cracks just so it's not hazardous, not trip hazard or anything like that. And the other thing is, I was really challenged to find a space within the park that offered parking close by that wouldn't interfere with the rental building, because that rental building is rented nearly every weekend. And so I wanted to get as far away from that building as I could, so that folks who are using the water park wouldn't take over the parking lot for the rental building when we have people who have paid for that rental space,
So
without
Mike-
creating a brand new parking lot somewhere further in the park. So, because the first place I did consider was near the play equipment, but my fear was that was gonna have a conflict with the rental building. And also Hut Truck is going to have tournaments here at Rice Park this summer, and so by pushing it a little further to the east, I was hoping the parking for the water park, they would stay closer to the east, where those who were there for the softball and baseball tournaments would park closer to the fields. So.
Makes sense. Thank you. Are there further questions?
Justin, if down the road there was a desire to have tennis courts at Rice Park, at least in today's dollars, what would be the difference between trying to make the existing courts or the existing court area usable versus using some vacant space to put new courts in?
I'm not sure I can put exact numbers on that. I'm not sure that to bring our current court up to modern standards, I don't think it would be too much more expensive to start completely over. Because the lights are aging. You wouldn't put that style lights on a new facility. I mean, they do their job, but they're not energy efficient. Like I said, the asphalt's basically needs to be completely removed and you would start over actually with concrete, and then a thin layer of asphalt on top of that for the paint that's on it. It's actually kind of an epoxy type. They roll on with rollers, so it's not just a asphalt or concrete pad. So that's the cost of them. And since the existing is so far down the road, I'm not sure we would gain much by trying to reuse that site. So.
Okay, thank you.
Is there such a thing as a multi-purpose court? I'm picturing handball /
Yeah,
you know,
there are
these kids are playing soccer. He had mentioned, or
yep,
some form thereof.
Soccer, basketball, handball, pickleball, something
heard of it,
that's
yeah.
very new. And tennis courts lend themselves well to most of those, just because of the size and because they're not being utilized for tennis. So, we do have some money in this year's budget to resurface the remaining half of the courts at Fairgrounds. A year ago, the school paid for half, and then we were going to pay for the other half this year. When the school bid those out, the bids came in pretty low, so I think we're going to have some additional funding for tennis court resurfacing, so we could look at Elmdale or some of the other courts and maybe make them into a multi-use or straight pickleball or anything like that. So.
Additional comments, questions? Any from the audience?
Last one, just for clarification purposes again. If we do move to approve this, are we set in stone on the location?
No, that's not part of the reason I need the approval today so I can move forward with the design. I think we can move it if you feel that you'd rather see it move
And
someplace
I'm not
else.
suggesting yes or no, but yeah,
Yeah.
I just wanted to see if that was availability or not.
Yeah, but we're not 100% locked into that side.
And,
I
and
did
it shouldn't
include-
affect the figures that much if we were to pick an alternate.
No, the only thing it might affect a little bit is the utilities.
Sure, okay,
And,
yeah.
and we actually do have utilities relatively close to this. We have a 2-inch water line close. There's a pad-mounted electric transformer that's close.
Sure, okay. Thank you.
Is there a motion on this item?
Based on that, I would move to approve the proposal with Athco LLC to design, supply, and install Water Odyssey splash pad equipment at Rice Park for an amount not to exceed $275,000 and authorize the mayor to sign.
I'll second.
Please call the roll.
Deckent?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Pyros de Carvalho?
Yes, next item, please.
Item 8, report of city officials.
All right, what do you have, Steve?
I'm a landlord, and that's no news to anybody, or shouldn't be. Being on city council, I wanted to make it a point to have the rental units that I own that are scheduled for inspection this year inspected fairly early in the process, and I did have those units inspected earlier this month. And I think some of the concerns by landlords has to do with an uncertainty, and I think some of the impact upon real estate has great bearing, or not bearing, but is borne upon by the uncertainty. Anyhow, I consider myself to be a landlord who manages my property well and offers good properties, and it was felt good to me that my inspections went without consequence. It was a fairly easy process to go through. Did I have some issues that needed to be corrected? Yes. Were they numerous? No. As a matter of fact, the units I had inspected this year are now on a 6-year rotation, which means that I was under the five elements as part of the ordinance. And I don't say those things to brag, but I guess what I want to say is that if one is a landlord who takes care of their properties, I think that the process of inspection will be pretty painless. I had an hour and a half scheduled for 3 units that took us 25 minutes. The second day, I had an hour and a half scheduled for another 3 units that took us 25 minutes. So anyhow, I'm dismayed to hear that if in fact there are several hundred units going on the market, yes, it will have some impact, but I think that may be a knee-jerk reaction by folks who are concerned. And I think at this point in time, unless they're more on the slumlord end of things, probably unnecessarily concerned about the impact upon them as business people and having a business. So I wanted to make those comments based on my personal experience with having my rental units, and I don't see that my experience will be any different again if a person's a responsible landlord.
Well
That's it.
said. Thank you so much, Steve. Nancy, do you have any?
Nothing.
What about you, Dave?
New parks, rentals, getting up to snuff. I was challenged to come up with something to say, and I think it's just making Hutchinson great again. If you've heard
Listen,
that
Donald.
popular phrase in the media. Not to say that we weren't great, but I just wanted to work that in. But it's encouraging. It's good things. I think we talked about knee-jerk reactions. I think this will be something for the long haul that will make us a better community for these various things that were on the agenda just today even.
Thank you.
Good, thanks, Dave.
John?
I might ask either John or Jana to perhaps comment briefly on the testimony that's been prepared and will be presented, I believe, tomorrow or Thursday by Greg Benz regarding the rental registration legislation being being proposed.
Right.
You sent us a copy of the testimony, and I thought it was so well done, very thorough, and I compliment all of you for the thoroughness of that, and you're right on point with that. So can you comment on that a little
Janet
bit?
and Amy really did a great job with this, and Janet can fill in details, but we've got 6 folks heading up Thursday morning to
okay.
testify, and fairly limited in how many can testify. And so Greg Benz, a member of the Housing Commission, works at First National Bank, will present our case. And I think we really got, if you read that testimony, in our history, we really got a compelling story to tell. We didn't just do this overnight. This has been addressed in our housing assessment studies back in 2009. Before that, it's been an issue, and we're trying to address that. And really, there was a comment made earlier that it's an act of desperation that we're going up there. I don't see that as an act of desperation. I think our perspective is that this is truly a home rule issue. Leawood, Lenexa, there's other communities in the state that may not have the problems we have. And that's why home rule is there, so cities can react to what their needs are and not have this blanket thrown across the state. And that's the message that we'll carry. So, Jan, I don't know if you have any others to follow.
I think John did a great job. We just try to tell the story that wasn't one that we just woke up one day and said, "Oh, we're gonna do this today."
No.
And in fact, in 2001, our housing needs analysis called for a rental inspection program way back then. So it's taken us
15 years.
Yeah. 15 years to get to one. And just another update, we have about half of the property owners have registered. That's not half the units, but about half, over $40,000 have been collected in fees. We're sending out a notice today to remind people that the last day to register is the 31st. But Greg Benz, he was on the Housing Commission, was the chair of the commission at the time that we started this, and we think he'll do a great job of speaking on behalf of Hutchinson.
Thank you.
I think it goes without saying that the status quo was not working. The complaint base response was not adequate. Thank you.
Just one other item, if I might perhaps ask Mr. Deardoff to comment on the pending legislation that's being presented, I think, next week on the tax lid. I read, I believe, that the league is presenting a bill. Is that correct? Or can you update us on that?
Well, I mean, there's actually the 3 bills that
Okay.
are still out there, and the one bill that was introduced would move the date up to effective July 1 of this year. That's a bill that was introduced, and then there's another bill that basically keeps the same original December or January of 2018, but also adds some additional exemptions. And then I'm trying to think of the detail of the third bill, but my expectation is that nothing will change. That the current tax lid that's in place today will stay in place and be effective at its original date in 2018. So that's just my prediction. So, but the league will be active in that, and other cities as well. But I don't see that much is going to change out of that. So,
Thank you for that update.
Anything else, John?
No.
Okay. I just very briefly wanted to thank everyone who took the time to attend the meeting and wait through all the various ordinances to make a few comments on an issue that was important to them, whatever that issue would be. It seemed like we had a lot today, and I think that our city is made so much better by that dialogue, and we really appreciate your comments. Sometimes it probably doesn't feel that way if we don't vote in a way that you would like, but I appreciate everybody who takes the time to give their input. What do you have, John?
just one other thing. I'm going to pass this out. This is the speed study. This isn't for action today, but that we did on Jackson Street. Remember, we had the request for the stop signs. We did the traffic counts, and basically, based on the numbers of cars and the speeds, it doesn't appear that it appears that the speeds are reasonable for that area. I think the 85 percentile, it was less than, it was like 25 miles per hour. So again, when we're asked to look at these, we do the traffic counts, speed counts, and make determinations, and there's certain warrants that need to be met. And this particular intersection is no different than any other residential intersection in the community where essentially you go 2 blocks before there's a stop sign. So this was the most recent information, and I'm not sure where else to go with it. Many of you have been contacted, and I think it's on the council's plate now to determine, you know, what you'd like to do with that.
Is this the one with
Not
the
now, I mean-
Avenue A
Pardon?
group? The Avenue A
Yeah.
school group?
I think that's, it came,
Kind of
it
in
was
some of the
brought to my
neighborhoods.
attention at one of those early public meetings we had there, so.
David, this isn't the same one that you had mentioned, is it?
It
is,
It
in
i-
fact.
it is,
It
it
is,
is
in
the
fact,
same one,
yes.
okay.
Yeah.
And again, for clarification purposes, it doesn't warrant necessarily a stop sign. Are there other traffic calming measures that could be put in play or not, or?
There's all sorts of things. I mean, obviously, the easy is speed control, traffic enforcement, those kinds of things. But, you know, I've got a whole article on traffic calming devices, from speed bumps to, you know, roundabouts to all kinds of things that are called traffic calming devices.
Right.
But, you know, based on the number of vehicles there, I mean, you're talking 99 vehicles of a day, isn't heavily traveled at all, really. As it goes as far as residential streets. So, I can't think that there
Right.
would be another traffic calming device that the traffic engineers would recommend here based
Okay.
on this information. So,
Very fine, okay.
Anything else, John?
that's all I have.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
With energy.
Yeah, I got
Second.
somebody coming to my
Second.
house.
Please
at
call the
2
roll.
o'clock.
Deckent?
Yes.
Inskeep?
Yes.
Dave Line?
Yes.
Soldner?
Yes.
Pyros de Carvalho?
Yes.
Might have set a record in 11 years I've been here.